Welcome here, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the Synology GT3 Championship, brought to you, of course, on Racebot TV, streaming live here on iRacing Live. We do have to apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for the slight delayed start here today. We've had a few issues here and there, but we are back going, and the racing has started here. We're about 11 minutes into this special 2-hour race that we have here today around this glorious nighttime track of Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. I am #DUMind Jake Sperry, joined alongside by the ever-brilliant Connery Maddock. And, well, Connery, early start of this race, Irunom got the pole. He got himself away. 2.3 seconds the gap as he heads into Lake Coombe right now. Scott Brazier in third. Craig A. Williams, great qualifying from him, up in second position. Big spread at the front towards the further back positions, though, likes of the top 10. Great battle going on. Alan McCain in the 010 looks to get past Adam Shipstone here for position number 10 out on circuit, and it's going to be a tight squeeze, but he's going to get the move done.
Yeah, that was a move done coming into the braking zone for the Lake Coombe chicane. As Adam King does push a little bit wide on the exit right there. That compromises his entry to the corner of Malmedy as they head their way down towards this long right-handed, long downhill right-hander as well of Rivage. And this is a train all the way from Jason Withrow in P number 9 all the way back to around about P number 14 and Ryan D. Walker. All of these cars are nose to tail. Looking back at the front though, Irunom has just absolutely dominated this early part of the race. Craig A. Williams did gain a couple of tenths of a second back, just a couple of laps to go to bring it back within 1.5 seconds. But now, on the relative time, it is up more towards 3.
Yeah, looking more towards 3 seconds. Irunom, of course, part of the brand new team here today, known as Thrustmaster, as they get themselves involved in this, the GT3 Championship we're looking at right now. And that's a big statement of intent today here, Connery, from the team of Thrustmaster. They were going to join at Le Mans. That race has been scheduled for a later date later on in the season. So their delayed start here to this season is one they'll be very, very happy with. Of course, not eligible for the team's championship, but still could get some very, very crucial points come the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they are leading the team's point standings at this moment in time, because they joined later on in the season than all of the other teams, they will not qualify for any prizes at the end of the season, as there's some battling going on for P number 9. This is Jason Withrow, Adam Shipstone, Neil Bamber, Alan McCain, and Bart Daleman, all having a little bit of jostling coming down into the bus stop. They get themselves a way out of the final corner just fine, though. Daleman may have a look at an opportunity on Alan McCain coming down towards La Source. As he sticks his nose there, he shows the nose, a little bit of a deep braking zone there for Alan McCain, and actually, that was a compromised line from Bart Daleman. Now he comes under threat from Ryan D. Walker. Ryan D. Walker has to run out the corner and will have the decision.
Yes, he will. Very good move then from the driver of Ryan D. Walker, getting himself up that crucial position as they run up towards the corners of Eau Rouge Radion, and then the run up the Camel Straight. Back up for P2 though here, out on circuit right now, Connery. Craig A. Williams with his best qualifying of the season so far in position number 2. Behind him, Scott Brazier, a very quick and eclectic driver for that team of Bushfink Racing. For Scott Brazier, he could make his way through very, very easily. And, you know, the ability that Craig A. Williams has underneath that bonnet certainly does a good job. But when compared to Scott Brazier, it will be a challenge for the 42.
Yeah, it will definitely be a challenge. Scott Brazier, one of the fastest drivers in this whole series, gotten a few race wins under his belt as well, and was, and still technically still is a Team Bushfink Racing teammate of Irunom, but obviously for this series, Irunom is part of the Thrustmaster team, and they've had a good couple of battles already during the course of this season, and it'll be interesting to see if Scott Brazier can actually get past Craig A. Williams first, his another teammate of the Bushfink Racing team, and then maybe get towards the front and maybe challenge Irunom by the end of this race, because this is a long race in this series, double the length of what it is usually. It's going to be 2 hours, and the fuel limit has not been increased, so we might be seeing a 3-stop race here.
We could see a 3-stop. That is generally what we are more inclined to see. A 2-stop may be possible if drivers save on their fuel as good and as effectively as they possibly can. Jason Dilworth, though, in the 003, battled with Tony Baird in the 004 for P7 out on circuit. Late on the brakes, final chicane, right, then left to get yourself onto the power on this endurance layout that we have today. So the full pit stop will be used. The start-finish line will be classified as the Grand Prix start-finish line, but side by side into turn number 1 there as Paul Martin gets out of the way of lap traffic for Bram Reniers there at last source. Tony Baird holding on to it with a big power drift coming out of the corner there, Connery. That's the thing today that drivers will be struggling on, because it's a 2-hour race. They're wondering whether tyres might be a good call or not. Those who stay out and decide the no tyre strategy today could pay the price in the latter hour of this event.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, 2 hours is basically a double stint for any normal endurance race, and it is very, very possible that these GT3s can do it. It's just whether it is the advantageous strategy or not compared to taking tyres. And also, if you're going to take tyres, you have to consider when you're going to take those tyres. Are you going to take those tyres on the first stop, the second stop, or the third stop? So this is another thing that your drivers and teams will have to consider during the course of this race.
Yeah, they certainly will here, and every driver knows that they are in this fight for the long run here, and there are a lot of drivers around this circuit who are looking to get some really good positions. I mean, talk about in the early goings, the 001 of Ben Hackerson didn't even set a lap time in qualifying with 3 attempts that he had today here, Connery. But the problem Hackerson's got, he's got to get himself all the way through the field currently, plus 13 in the opening 8 laps of this event. He's P17, and on this longer event, it's going to be so much easier for him to get himself through more positions in this one.
Yeah, exactly. It would be more concerning starting from the back of the grid in a 1-hour race compared to a 2-hour race. As you said, it gives him much more time to get himself back up there. Obviously, currently in 17th place, just coming through Pujon right now. Next driver that's down the road for him will be the number 34 car of Lee Bunker. Actually, Lee Bunker had a good lap time last time by just inside the 1 minute 18s there, and Haxon had a worse lap. He had a 1:20.2. So as it stands at the moment, Haxon's actually dropping off the back of Lee Bunker. That's certainly not what he wants, especially with his woes in qualifying.
Yes, and he's got to be careful about how that happens. Dion Phillips versus Barry Baird, the 043 versus the 006 right now for position number 4 out on circuit. Dion Phillips having another fantastic run in the early goings, but you always have to have a silver lining with Dion Phillips today here, Connery, because of the matter of fact that every time he's been up in or around the top 5, he's had one instance somewhere on circuit which has dropped him a mile back down the order.
Yeah, exactly. And as it is at the moment, he doesn't really have all that many cars around him. The only car that's close to him is the driver behind, so around about a second back, and then it's going to be actually half a second back. That's going to be Barry Baird right there in that replace space, number 6 machine. And, well, that's the only driver that Dion Phillips will be concerned about at this moment in time. Having a look through the field, though, 2 cars following each other very, very closely coming through Eau Rouge and Radulon. This is number 5 of Neil Bamber and the 10 of Alan McCain. McCain's going to have the run coming onto the Camel Straight, have to be forced around the outside, though, for Lecombe. So side-by-side between those two coming down in towards the braking zone of Lecombe, who blinks first coming down into the braking zone. They both blink at exactly the same time as they had side-by-side through the first part, and that's going to be the position gained there for Alan McCain. And Ryan D. Walker may also have an opportunity as well in his teammate.
He may do, but he's not going to make that move. Neil Bamber was very squirrely in the mid part of that corner of Lecombe, so he had to lose that position already. About 3/4 tenths of a second gone off the back of the driver of Alan McCain. So that 4-car train will start to continue back up then on the goings that they have. And right now, this is going to be a very difficult event for drivers to do. And it's not even the case of this is the first event that's happened here today, Connery, or in the last couple of days, because the Tour de France decided to run its way through the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, which is always a very nice touch.
Yes, of course it is, but I get the feeling that these cars are just a little bit faster than man-powered 2-wheeled machines. So we'll see how that is. It's actually side-by-side for Tony Baird and Jason Dilworth. Terrible run out of the corner there, out of Stavlo 2 for Tony Baird. Just gave up the position before Blanchimont. So that's actually a good run through Blanchimont for Tony Baird. He may be able to reply coming down onto the brakes into the bus stop, but no, he sticks behind just for now. And, well, that was definitely a mistake coming out of Stavlo 2 that surrendered that position for Tony Baird.
It did surrender that position, so Jason Dilworth, who's been very hit and miss so far this season, now gets himself up into position number 7 and does a very good job of getting himself through then in that scenario. So for Jason Dilworth, position number 7, a very, very good move for him in the early goings, but this is a 2-hour race, which is always going to be very difficult. Daniel Bailey getting out of the way of Barry Baird, getting slightly held up up the hill of the Camel, straight looking towards that Lacoon complex. And actually it does stop Dion Phillips here, who is really struggling here as they go side by side for the moment. And Dion Phillips with a huge power slide, 2 power slides, massive wiggle in the McLaren, round the outside decides to go Barry Baird, and you know what, he's got that one done, and that is a very beautiful move.
Yeah, and very scary moments there for Dion Phillips. He has an opportunity on the exit of the Rivage. There's almost rubbing doors there coming off the exit of the corner. Now into No Name corner. Barry Baird will have the advantage coming through here, but Dion Phillips sticks that Audi around the outside, runs a little bit wide. He has to be careful of the off tracks there, as he will actually get that pass done before Puan or Willie. Barry Baird will still be there on the inside line. Will take the position, careful of running wide. Here comes Dion Phillips, yeah, again down the inside of Puan. And I think this is going to be the pass complete.
Oh, this is an absolute classic that we see in Dion Phillips. What a resilient hold after the mistake coming up the Kemmel. A battle for about a third of a lap, if not half a lap, to make sure that they hold it all together in the tight and technical second part of this session, or sector, shall we say. And you know what? That is a very good drive. And if there is any sort of doubt about Dion Phillips' talent, it was there and it was shown in quite a bit of abundance there, Connery.
Yeah, it really was, and he's doing very well for himself right now, but he still has to keep up that defense to keep Barry Baird behind him. Barry Baird, very fast driver in his own right. He closes up, coming through what is going to be the Blanchimont corner on the run down towards the bus stop. Actually, there was Dion Phillips getting a better run out of it, but that all closes up under the brakes as Barry Baird gets a very good braking zone for the bus stop there, but doesn't get as good of an exit. That's McLaren, actually, as I've been calling a McLaren and Audi for about 10 minutes. That McLaren gets a better run out of the final corner.
Yes, he does. Battle, though, going on further down the field right now. Daleman, Walker, Bamber, Alan McCain is there, and just in front of them is the driver of Jason Withrow, who you normally see around the mid-20s of the field, maybe even the 30s, but today he is having a stunning run up inside your top 10. For one of the first times that we've seen Jason Withrow up inside the top 10, he is loving this Spa-Francorchamps circuit and is doing a very good job of things to make sure that he gets himself back into play. So up in position number 10 plus 1 for the day, that 059 machine riding himself up a Rouge, now into Radion, and now doing a very good job of getting himself going forward. But talk about drivers further down the field having battles. You've got drivers like Jonathan Beresford versus Ryan Atmore as they make their runs. But there are certain drivers here today who are brand new to the series. Drivers like the 058 of Davy Vittelbols here from Club Benelux. And that 058 did start today in position number 7, but a spin in the early goings whilst the cameras were off, whilst we were having our issues, meant that he drops himself back down to position number 15, but has the ability now to really close down the gaps to the likes of Daleman, Walker, Bamber, McCain, all of those that are scrapping it out, as Paul Martin actually turned around at the corner without a name at all, and that was all on his own. Too greedy into the corner. The vehicle was always going to turn itself around, and that is a big shame for the driver of Paul Martin to just drop down those positions, just a couple of them at a time. But at the front, it's still, as you'd expect it, Iru Nom, championship leader, who has a 50% win ratio here in this league so far, out and away by at least 4 seconds as he rounds himself through the very difficult final chicane. They've always tried to change this one. It's had about 3 changes since about 1999-2000. And the fact that Iru Nom is showing just how good he is, he will look to try and walk away with it. Craig A. Williams only 4.3 seconds back. Scott Brazier, not the best lap times from him there, Connery, because he's dropped back now to about 1.5, if not more, seconds back.
Yeah, definitely not a good couple of laps from him, and well, he's going to have to work quite a lot to try and get back the time that he has just
contact down at La Source corner. Sorry about that. That's Barry Baird and Dion Phillips coming together at turn number 1. Down into the corner, it was just a bit of contact. Barry Baird late on the brakes there compared to Dion Phillips. The pair just chuck each other into that battle. Replay up on screen on exactly that has happened. And well, a big moment there for the pair of them down at last source, but it continues up through Eau Rouge because Dion Phillips got all sorts of wrong, heading himself through the right-hand corner of the corner of Eau Rouge, and a big block then for the driver of Barry Baird to deal with, as the driver of Dion Phillips just stormed his way into a staunch defense. Bram Reniers now up into position number 4 on circuit, and it's not often that you hear Bram Reniers in position number 4. So today seems to be the event which gets all those drivers struggling to go through. Barry Baird turned around then at Malmedy as he got all sorts of to the rear of Dion Phillips. Gets close, tries to get on the brakes. Red mist has descended for Barry Baird. That is 2 or 3 big incidents in the last half a lap that we have just seen from him. Barry Baird is struggling, and for his title aspirations, or looking for positions 3, positions 4, he now drops down to position number 9 on circuit behind the driver of Adam Shipstone. So for that driver of Barry Baird, it is a big issue today, Connery, if he continues to go off in 6s and 7s.
Yeah, exactly, and he just has to really get his head back in the game right now, as he has the driver of Adam Shipstone still ahead of him, so still an opportunity to gain that position back for Barry Baird. But he has a little bit of damage on the front end of that replace base AMG Mercedes. Not too much, it looks to be superficial, but any time that could be lost as a result of that damage really does add up over 2 hours.
It certainly does, and the pit stop window starts to open up side by side. Jason Withrow versus Neil Bamber for position number 10, 11, shall we say, because he has started to make mistakes. Alan McCain has already got through. Withrow now is going to drop back, loses one position, potentially could lose another, as Ryan Walker now wants to get onto the freight train and start to make positions. With pit stop window open, many drivers might feel that jumping down onto pit road might be a good strategy call, but in the early goings, drivers will typically want to make it half an hour at least today to get themselves through. And trying to get themselves through half an hour, Connery, is tough enough. Trying to make the fuel last 40 minutes, that's an even bigger challenge for everyone.
Yeah, that is a very big challenge indeed, and as a result, I don't think we'll be seeing anyone really manage to stretch it over 40 minutes, because of it's also very risky to do, because if you run out halfway through the lap here at Spa, then you still have a very long way to go to get back to the pits. And here comes the move on for Barry Baird on Adam Shipstone, coming onto the brakes, coming down into the Coombe chicane. Very late on the brakes there for Barry Baird. He risks missing the apex there, but no, he gets the apex perfectly for the first part of the Coombe, and that means that he does gain that position back over Adam Shipstone. But it's not been a great day at the office so far for Barry Baird. He's going to have to take that one as a little victory.
Yes, he will, as he gets himself +1 on Adam Shipstone, but for the entirety of the day, for the 006 machine, he is still -3 and needs to make those positions. Withrow versus Daleman now, as the driver of Walker has managed to make his way through then on this one. So now Bart Daleman looking to try and just make something happen. Vittelbols on the back of this train, and we were saying, Connery, that Vittelbols did have that ability to get himself back into play, but for the time being, he's now got to play on the offensive here, one at a time, pick him off.
Yeah, exactly. That would definitely be the strategy that he has to employ, as he is gaining a whole bunch of time over all 3 cars in front. He was about 0.8 of a second faster than Bart Hillman, a couple of seconds faster than Jason Withrow and Ryan D. Walker as well. So he definitely has the pace to be able to pass these 3 cars ahead of them. But let's see what he just does here over the next half a lap or so, I'd say.
Over the next half a lap might be where the moves need to happen here, but drivers are knowing that this is going to be even more so a marathon and not a sprint. That 2-hour factor is coming into play, as Withrow now might have a chance to come back at Ryan D. Walker in towards the chicane. He goes to the outside here. It's off camber at both different ventures, so it's going to be even more difficult to make an around the outside move work, and as such, he is compromised here compared to Bart Daleman on the run towards turn number 1. But for the time being, it is going to be a waiting game, as they are all going to stay line astern through the last source hairpin. Now the run to Eau Rouge for the lot of them makes himself very difficult. They have traffic ahead of them though, which Bamber and McCain will try and negotiate through in the form of Dave White. And traffic, you know, has had a tendency to get involved once or twice already during this season, Connery.
Yep, it really has, and that problem is definitely going to be exacerbated over the course of the race of this length, as we see the likes of Neil Bamber trying to get past David White, but Dave White is not going to let him pass, coming down into what is going to be the Lecombe chicane right there, and then finally yields. But that's not what you want lap traffic to do, getting in your way.
No, it isn't, and when you do have lap traffic, you hope it behaves, and in that case, it really wasn't the case of behaving for those drivers that had themselves that big moment there as they headed through towards Lecombe. So already right now we have ourselves maybe a couple of drivers just thinking, just waiting on whether it's going to be beneficial for them to really get themselves into some battles. Looking further down the field, actually, you got a driver going slow in the form of Daniel Bailey. He is lap traffic, so he will look to try and get himself through. Taylor Lane versus Anthony Marsh, the 027 versus the 032. This one for P24-25 on circuit here, Connery, but every small point for these teams in the lower ends of the field are certainly very, very crucial, as now Taylor Lane will look to go down to the inside of the driver ahead of him, of Anthony Marsh, and he makes that one look very easy at Rivage.
Yeah, pass complete there for Taylor Lane. Obviously, Taylor Lane is not part of a team currently. He has that privateer badge on the back of his car, but Anthony Marsh is part of a team, in fact, part of the Rotzi team. So the team points will be relatively important for that Rotzi team, even though they aren't qualifying for any prizes at the end of the season, because they are in the exact same situation that the Thrustmaster team is. They joined later on in the season, therefore don't qualify for any prizes at all. But Taylor Lane just making his way up through the field, started 34th in fact, and he's managed to gain about 10 positions, getting himself into 24th.
Yeah, doing very well, but of course pit stop window is firmly open as Martin Gelenke now will look to try and exit pit road right now. Will now be classed as one lap down, cross the line in position at number 26, but is that representative? Probably not on where he is right now, as the battles look to continue and continue then in the early goings of this. And the pit stop window is very interesting right now. Of course, we did talk about tyres, we did talk about the likes of, say, 2-stop over 3-stop on fuel. With all these variables, it's very difficult in the early stages to really work out where anyone's going. We're thinking here, Connery, you've got to go 40 minutes if you want to make it home. That on its own is a really difficult challenge.
Yeah, very, very difficult indeed, and it definitely requires just a little bit of fuel saving from all of your drivers in your field today. And of course, the ones that are good at that fuel saving may have a jump when it comes to
that's Dion Phillips off again, this time at Fania, and he is really starting to risk himself here of really working those rear tyres up. Snap oversteer, Connery, and that is the last thing that you need to see from Dion Phillips.
Yep, exactly, and here's a replay of that incident. In fact, coming down into the Lefania sweeper there, and again, it's trouble getting that McLaren in on entry. They can't just swap ends as soon as he tried to go for the apex there. Luckily, there's a little bit of runoff there, so he wasn't able to hit any barriers, but these are just mistakes starting to settle in for Dion Phillips. He was running very, very well, up in the, well, 4th place at one point, and now he's all the way down the field in P7, just picking up actually a lapped car right there. That was Peter Parnell just getting out of the way, but it's not a good start to the race with Dion Phillips. Actually, he's going to head his way down pit road.
So is Iru Nom down on pit road. The fact that he's down on pit road suggests that he is on the 3-stop strategy today, because he can't make it 40 minutes. But what he will be able to do is potentially the splash and dash down at the end of this event. And he knows that he relinquishes the race lead then to Craig A. Williams, who will lead a lap for probably the very first time in his Bosra career here. So for Iru Nom, he will be very happy with the fact that he's made that early stint and gained about 5 seconds on that driver, Craig A. Williams. You talk about 5 seconds being a lot. For Craig A. Williams, that's not too bad in terms of a fight. That's coming out of pit road right now is that driver of Taylor Lane.
Yeah, and we're just seeing now Dion Phillips still hasn't even hit his pit box. That's how long the endurance pit lane here is at Spa, and that's why it's so valuable to maybe try and cut out a pit stop here. But I think most of your drivers will be on that 3-stop strategy. It's going to be a very, very optimistic to try and go for a 2-stop here, as Barry Baird gets himself stopped in towards his box right there, and actually he misses it. Barry Baird misses his box. He has to reverse back into his box, and that's going to be lots of time lost on pit road for Baird there.
Yeah, Baird losing a lot of time, and that's also going to mean that there is going to be more issues for him as he spends longer on pit road. Ben Hackerson is out of the event, and that is a huge shame for the reigning champion, as he will now have to use yet another of his drop weeks, which he has been using lefts and rights and centres, yet still somehow second in the championship. Scott Brazier, though, battle for the race lead versus Craig A. Williams right now as they head into that final chicane. Right then we'll see if anyone goes left. They're both going to hit pit road at the same time. It's so narrow going down in here, and now it's a battle between pit crews here. It's now a case of hit yourself at 60 kilometers an hour and hope that you can just run and run and run and get yourself going. The pit road is so long here, it's taking absolutely forever, if not 2/3 of a lap, if not a minute and a half, to get yourself down onto pit road, serve yourself, and get gone, Connery.
Yeah, it's just short of a minute and a half all the way down pit road. There's actually have more drivers down on the lane as well. Bram Reniers and Tony Baird, they're going to head their way down on towards pit road. Jason Dilworth's actually going to miss the pit road. He's going to go out at least one more lap, so he will actually inherit the race lead right here, as all of your drivers at the front of the field still trundling their way down towards the pit lane. It's a very tricky pit entry, and also there's a very tricky little hairpin turn in the middle of the pit lane as well. So there's two things that your drivers have to be aware of when they're coming into pit as the drivers start to approach their boxes.
I've actually seen drivers flip in the likes of the DGFX Championship. I have seen drivers get turned around in certain areas, so you do have to be careful about where you make that change. Craig A. Williams will lead the lap by 1 second on his drive down on towards pit road, but now is a case to be made of where is Iru Nom, and that is rounding that Lassos hairpin, making that charge now towards turn number 1 as he passes the likes of Jason Withrow on pit road, Neil Bamber, Alan McCain, Alan Shipstone, Tony Baird, Bram Reniers, Scott Brazier, and now Craig A. Williams will look to get himself out and away. There will go the driver of Iru Nom, and that overspeed is so paramount here as Craig A. Williams has nothing really to argue against it. So back to the race lead goes Iru Nom, no real worries, but Scott Brazier just lost a lot of time here, and he's now got the gentleman John Roberts just in front of him, who I don't think has made a stop yet, Connery.
No, John Roberts has not yet made a stop, as it was a relatively slow stop for Scott Brazier, around about 2 seconds slower than Iru Nom or Craig A. Williams. So that is definitely trouble on pit lane for Scott Brazier. Lots of drivers on pit road right now. Jason Withrow, Alan McCain, Neil Bamber, Simon Underhill was on pit road, and there's also Jonathan Beresford also on the lane as well. So most of your drivers coming down at this stage in the race. There's 3 drivers at the top of your field though that haven't come in yet. That's Jason Dilworth, Bart Daleman, and Davey Vittelbos.
Yes, and they'll be looking to try and go as long as they possibly can on the fuel tank, which has been limited down to 60% here in this one. I was just keeping an eye on Barry Baird, though, and his dramas. He is through on Shipstone, even though he had those big dramas, but now he's stuck behind Simon Underhill here in the 007 machine, and that's going to be a big worry, actually, for that driver that we are looking at here of Barry Baird, because he knows that it was a very early pit stop for Simon Underhill, who came in with a little bit of damage or something in the opening 5 laps. Underhill is now on a different strategy to everybody else. He's probably going to go and pit on the hour marks now, or on the half-hour marks, to get himself through to the end of the race.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, the stint length for Simon Underhill right now is around about 11 laps and a half there, as most of your drivers are out there on fresh tyres now, because your top 3 have now come in down towards the lane. So Iru Nom will inherit the race lead back here, like he was at the start of the race, as Dilworth, Daleman, and Vittelbos all make their stops.
Yes, they all come in then to the last of the pitters on 39 minutes with that minute run down to pit road. You have to feel they have made the 40-minute mark, and that will be a victory for quite a few drivers here on this field, because they know they can save themselves about a minute and a half down on pit road, Connery, and that is massive in terms of this race.
Yeah, absolutely massive. And then we can see some sort of different strategies starting to play out around that. If they can save enough fuel to take one stop out of the equation, Jason Dilworth, Daleman, Vittelbos, and also John M. Roberts also managing to make the 40-minute mark, then that could be the card that wins them this whole race. Coming down towards the source, though, that was Simon Underhill's 007 and Barry Baird. Barry Baird completely missing his braking marker, coming down into that source, narrowly avoiding the back of Simon Underhill's car.
Yes, and it's not the first time we've seen Barry Baird try to go deep. And remember, this is nighttime conditions, visibility a lot lower, and that is arguably the brightest section of this circuit. You're only really relying on the headlights that you got in front of you, which seem to pierce out into the night but don't do too much. The fact that you got lower visibility, maybe Barry Baird is struggling compared to, like, say, Dion Phillips, who was up on the podium at Motegi, which was under the lights, and got himself at that incident with just a few laps to go. For Barry Baird, I think he struggles with nighttime racing.
Yeah, I think so too, and maybe it's a visibility issue, not used to being in the pitch blackness of night here at Spa. Spa is one of the trickiest night circuits because the only artificial lighting are the lights that come from the headlights of the cars and the lights that are on the pit straight. That is it. So it's very, very difficult to see out there unless, of course, you play with the settings a little bit, trying to turn the brightness up on your monitor up a little bit, as we actually just have a little bit of a look towards. This is going to be Davey Vittelbos, and actually that was Jason Withrow, and they just were very, very close on track, but Vittelbos actually, I think, did come out ahead of Jason Withrow, so that's not something he's going to have to be concerned about. The next driver down the road for Davey Vittelbos, though, is the car of is going to be Bart Daleman.
It is, and that's a good jump in pit stops then for Vittelbos as he gets past Jason Withrow. But Daleman will be a key driver to get himself past, but remember, he knows that he's on that recovery drive, and in theory, you'd think that Vittelbos is the quicker driver overall. So, in terms of that, they are looking to try and get themselves further forward here in this event and doing a good job. But battle going on right now, Dion Phillips versus the driver, Jason Dilworth. And this is where class comes in. Well, not necessarily class, but manufacturer comes into play here today, Connery, because, of course, that McLaren is going to be a nightmare on top speed as he gets a massive wiggle out of the source, caught up on the green AstroTurf there, which does have that ability to turn a vehicle around because of the lesser grip than you see on the tarmac. Now it's going to make him duck that he's sitting here in terms of this one compared to Dilworth, but Dilworth will not have the top speed advantage to help him.
Yeah, he'll have the draft to help him, and that's pretty much it for Jason Dilworth. As you see, even in the draft, Dilworth not gaining as much as he otherwise would if that was the same class of car. He has a look towards the outside, but no, he's just going to back out of it. Dion Phillips still taking a relatively defensive inside line there for the start of the Lecum chicane coming into Malmedy, but Dion Phillips is just going to stay ahead just for now, and I'm always a little bit nervous when I see that back end of that McLaren just step out of Dion Phillips. We've seen it already where he can't get the car turned into the corner, and I fear he's going to have another instance soon if he can't control that rear end happiness.
It is very, very squirrely, and that is going to be something that is in the mind of Dion Phillips there as he is pushing, you could argue, on the ragged edge to get himself back into play. With that first pit stop done, Iru Nom leads. Craig A. Williams then in position number 2. Scott Brazier currently in 3rd overall. Bramrin is 4th. Dion Phillips 5th. Dilworth 6th. Tony Baird in 7th with Simon Underhill currently 8th. It's Adam Shipstone in 9th because Barry Baird has had a mistake yet again on circuit, Connery, and that has dropped him behind Shipstone by a very fair margin, and that seemed to be coming into Lecum.
Yeah, it did seem to be the case as actually he had a little bit of a spin. This is just coming through the first apex of Lecum, in fact. Spun almost in front of traffic as well. There was Adam Shipstone trying to make his way through, and there was almost an instant between those two cars as Barry Baird manages to rejoin the track, even after holding there for just a couple of seconds. And again, it's not been a great day for Barry Baird. He is now down 5 positions on his qualifying time in that 10th position.
Yeah, down 5 positions is going to be a horrible day and a horrible haul of points for him as well, because he was up there inside that top 5 of the championship, and any points that he loses is going to be severely hurting him in his runs going through to the latter half of the season. Even though there's drop weeks here, Connery, drivers don't want to be using them up because they know they've only got a set amount And the moment that you have to be back against the wall, you don't want to, when, say, your vehicle lets you down or your driving ability lets you down on that one race on this very long 30-race season, you don't want to be losing everything on just 4 results, which could have been saved.
Yeah, exactly. Even though you do have quite a few drop weeks in this series, I believe it's about 4 drop weeks in a 30-round series, that is usually only meant to be a security net in case you have a couple of bad races. If you have lots and lots of bad luck over the course of the season, those drop weeks aren't going to save you in terms of a championship battle coming towards the end of the season. Another battle that's going to be close on track. Actually, this is going to be Jason Dill was actually managing to get himself past a lapped car, so lap traffic already playing a factor in this race as Alan McCain actually goes wide, coming through the Lacombe chicane, and a little bit of a back end out on exit as well, and that means Neil Bamber in the number 5 machine can actually have an opportunity to pass coming down into Ravage. Nope, he's just going to stay behind just for now, but that was a mistake from Alan McCain that has meant that Neil Bamber maybe has an opportunity.
Yes, and for Alan McCain, he knows that he didn't have too much of a straight to work with, and that was in his favour because of the fact that he didn't have too much time, or the driver Neil Bamber didn't have too much time to really capitalise on that mistake. The thing about Neil Bamber, which he's done really well this season, Connery, is he has finished every single race. He has not DNF'd at any point during this season, and that is why he is P3 in the championship, off of pure consistency.
Yep, exactly. No real need to use any of those drop weeks for Neil Bamber, and actually those will play into his advantage coming towards the end of this season as he's dropping rounds with less significant amount of points than the rest of your drivers. So he may be looking good to maybe get in towards and stay in that top 3 coming towards the end of the season. We will just have to see, and that's also going to be a big points haul for Bodine Solutions as well in their fight in the teams championship as well. So those are 2 things that he has to consider when trying to get past Alan McCain, not to make a hash of it.
Oh, door was closed on Irunom with lap traffic, which will spin around, and that was Peter Parnell who had that incident with Ben Hackerson. I believe that was at Silverstone. Oh, when he comes back onto circuit, almost collects Craig A. Williams, so Parnell can't keep himself out of the walls. That is very scary for Irunom, and he will not be happy with that because he did have the right to get his way down to the inside at Les Combes, but the door was firmly shut on him. There was nowhere that Nom could have gone.
Yeah, exactly, and I think you definitely have to pin the blame there on lap traffic. Obviously, lap traffic isn't always at fault when it comes to incidents between lead lap cars and other traffic, but I definitely would say that Peter Parnell was at fault there, and well, that's going to be a moment that Irunom just has to forget about right now. Just get back into his rhythm and try and extend that gap even further at the front of the field.
Yes, and the fact that he actually lost time on that last lap will really frustrate him because he did a 2:17.7 matched with a 2:17.2 from Craig A. Williams. It meant that he brought the gap down to 4.8. Although that gap is still large, Nom will have to work that gap up again all over. So knowing that he has to get that gap up again for Irunom is going to be very, very frustrating for him as he has to keep on plugging away, keep on doing his work. But he can't afford to be frustrated by lap traffic here. Incidents like that sometimes happen, Connery, because of the nature of having so many lap cars out on circuit. One of them surely has to run into a few issues currently. Only the top 22 are on the leading lap right now.
Yeah, exactly, and that number is just going to reduce as we get towards the checkered flag here in this race, and we still have at least 1 more pit stop to go, 2 more pit stops for most of the rest of the field that did not hit that 40-minute mark that some of the drivers were aiming for. So that's going to be more and more of an issue the longer we go in this race.
Yes, it certainly is. Drivers who are really looking to make that long stop work, drivers like Jason Dilworth, who you may feel is on that 2-stop strategy, only 35 seconds, shall we say, off the pace of the leaders right now in this battle entrenched with Dion Phillips. And the fact that he is in this battle with Dion Phillips right now shows you he's in P6, only 35 seconds back. You feel that if he's still within 45 seconds, when he gets himself to about half distance, Connery, you feel that Jason Dilworth is in this race and has the opportunity to win this one outright.
Yeah, that all depends if he has been fuel saving enough on this second stint as well. Because pit lane time here is around about 27, 28, 29 seconds spent on the lane, which is a huge amount compared to any other track. Then if Jason Dilworth can keep within that margin, when Irunom makes his final stop, then he has a very good chance at taking this race win. But it's definitely a thing to watch coming towards the end.
Yes, and those big battles then in the vehicles that we've got here today, they are starting to stagnate a little bit, as the racing normally does. But of course, if you are only just joining us here, ladies and gentlemen, we do have to apologize for what happened to us earlier. We did miss the first 10 minutes, but we have managed to find some footage again of the incident that's happened. We are going to play of the start that's happened. We will play it for you now here on this race that we've got going on, and that big start that we had heading towards the corners of turn number 1 last source, and then when they actually got themselves going at the next section of track known as Eau Rouge and up towards Radion. And so that is something that the drivers had to be careful of as they were single file heading through the early stages. And Connery, it was a clean start from all here in this one when they got themselves going. And you have to say, the rolling start, of course we started the series off with grid starts, the rolling starts have really helped combat this ability of lap 1 crashes.
Yeah, it really was, and I wouldn't really wanted to have seen a standing start here at Spa, especially with how much carnage can be caused going up through that very, very tight, basically one line, Eau Rouge and Radilon section. But all your drivers with the rolling start managed to negotiate themselves cleanly and only make passes for position on the braking zone coming down into the corner.
Yes, they do, and well, up through the likes of Les Combes and then the runs to the likes of Rivage, you've got the corner with No Name. Really, in the early stages, it was about the packs that formed and the breakaways that happened. Irunom made a second in the opening lap of this event today, Connery, and that in itself is what we've come to expect from Irunom. But what we do know is that Thrustmaster are very clear. They want some of the best drivers in this field, 2 pros, 2 AMs. And at that point, they have chosen some very good drivers. Drivers like Irunom for the pros, drivers like Rolf Just in the AM category. And that's something that we don't normally get to talk about here. The AM category is so crucial to many drivers. For drivers like, say, Rolf Just in position 19, he is +6 going onwards as actually Simon Underhill's come down into pit. You know, he is doing a very good job of himself, just keeping out of trouble, bring the car home. And sometimes that's the only thing you need to do as a racer, and not push at 100%, but maybe 95.
Yep, exactly. You have to remember that there are prizes for the top positions in your pro category and in your AM category. Unfortunately, there are no prizes for the privateers that are in this series. So I'd say coming towards the end of this season, we'll be paying much more attention to what the point standings are in terms of the AM category, since it's not just the pro series that will be getting prizes at the end of this series.
Exactly, then, as we bring our first lap coverage from what was on the first lap more towards a close here. Battle going on. Scott Brazier has now got back onto the rear of Craig A. Williams. That was a very good battle charge from him to get himself back then into play as he continues to try and make that look then at the final chicane. Something else that we need to talk about, though, Jason Dilworth's lost position. Tony Baird is now through on Jason Dilworth, but you have to remember, Dilworth is on that strategy where he is going to be slower over the course of the laps. He's only doing 2:18s compared to the 2:16s of Tony Baird, and that would suggest to you that Tony Baird has decided to take tyres in that first stop.
Yeah, even though it doesn't look like the stop times were all that different between Tony Baird and Jason Dilworth, around about a second difference between those two particular drivers on the lane. So I don't think it's going to be the difference between taking tyres or not, unless they did manage to get those tyres fitted in time. But I don't think is the case as they head their way across the line right now. It's going to be actually Craig A. Williams and Scott Brazier. Scott Brazier is actually through up into P number 2 now, and that was a pass on the brakes coming down into Le Combes. A draft pass, you can say, for the most of it, but it had to be completed on the brakes, and that's exactly what Scott Brazier did over his Team Buckstring Racing teammate.
Yes, he did, and he made his way through with a very comfortable one. Replayed out of the pass, and that was pretty plain sailing, shall we say, from the Ford GT machine compared to the machine that we got there for Craig A. Williams there, as he is trying to drive that Mercedes around the circuit. So for that driver of Scott Brazier. He knows that he can chase up to his teammate Iru Nom. And when it has been a one-on-one fight between Nom and Brazier, more often than not, it's actually Scott Brazier that walks away with the win compared to Iru Nom. Nom has the overall pace, which does very well. But you have to argue it's the one weakness in Nom's game, his actual ability to battle with other drivers.
Yeah, I think so too, because as you mentioned, every time Euronom has a on-track battle with Scott Brazier, if Scott Brazier is that close, then Scott Brazier has been the victor. And, well, we'll have to see what happens this time if Scott Brazier manages to get within about a second of Iru Nom. He's around about 6 seconds off right now, with Iru Nom setting some very, very competitive lap times indeed. 0.6 of a second faster than Scott Brazier last time by. But there's still a long while to go in this race, pretty much a whole normal race distance in this series towards the end of this race. And you can never know what happens in terms of the pit stops as well.
2:16.7 meets a 2:16.7, but Scott Brazier was fastest by 0.003 of a second. So I don't know how many 0.003 you need to close down 6.1 seconds, but it's not going to be enough for Scott Brazier in the time of 2 hours that they have allotted. Mathieu van Delden down onto the lane. The second round of pit stops has started.
Yes, it has, as Van Delden will get himself down onto lane. There's a big moment coming off the top of Eau Rouge, actually, for Scott Brazier. Just clipped the inside, that left-hand curb coming over the top of the hill a little bit too much. He may have gotten a slowdown penalty because of that. I'm just going to watch his throttle inputs coming on the Camel straight, as I don't think he did, actually. So that's a very lucky escape there for Scott Brazier, exploiting the track limits at the top of Eau Rouge.
Yes, he is, and he's got to be careful about the way that he is working with Eau Rouge and the fact that he does have to be careful. Jason Dilworth getting held up by Parnell there. Had to go very wide at last source to make something happen. Completely mucked that one up. And then at Eau Rouge, he had to hit the brakes heading down to that section because he wasn't confident there was a gap on the inside. And Dilworth, in all of that, has lost himself about a second. And remember, Dilworth's on this race and is in that position to go for that two-stop strategy. And if he does do that two-stop strategy, he's got to be within 45 seconds of your race leader Iru Nom at the halfway stage, and that's cost him probably 2 seconds of that because he was 40 seconds back, and now the gap looks very, very marginal for Dilworth here.
Yeah, it's approaching 43 seconds at this point in time as another car is off ahead of Jason Dilworth. That was Lee Woodburn in number 36, having a little bit of trouble coming on the entry to what is going to be No Name Corner. Actually had an issue on the exit of Rivage as well. But Jason Dilworth, he has to be a little bit concerned that he's cutting it a little bit close to that 45-second mark. As actually it does click over 43 seconds right now, and it's getting very, very close to the halfway point, so this could go either way, Jake.
Either way is going to be something that we'll have to keep our eyes peeled on as Brazier. We'll see what lap times he sets this time when he's had himself a little bit of clean air to work with. 2:17 flat, though, compared to the 2:16.8 from Nom, so he isn't as consistent in these middle parts of the lap, so he will start to fall back and struggle here in the later stages of this event. I do want to keep my eyes out, though, on some other battles that have been happening. Adam Shipstone has lost the position to Barry Baird as he's made his way back up then into position number 8 overall. And looking at another battle right now is this one that's going on. Alan McCain in the 010. He's in this scrap with Neil Bamber for what is going to be position number 10, the last spot inside the top 10, as Dave White gets himself all out of it while he was still turning left. Don't hit the brakes when you turn is the cardinal sin of racing, and he very nearly took out one of the contenders for the top 10 there.
Yeah, exactly. That was a very close moment between the lapped car and Alan McCain right there. More scary moments than we would have liked already so far in this race between lap traffic and lead lap cars. Hopefully we won't see any more of that coming towards the end of this race, but it's not over until the Fat Lady sings.
No, it certainly isn't over yet, and well, with another hour left to go, we know that there are certainly going to be a lot of drivers who are looking to try and make that push. We are, for the first time here today, and probably the only time today, going to take you RaceSpot TV fan immersion. We're going to keep an eye on the 042 of Craig A. Williams as he tries to hold on to the coattails of Mr. Scott Brazier. Craig A. Williams trying to just hold on to the rear of Scott Brazier, but Brazier just pulling away enough here to give himself that gap that he so desperately needs. We are just over 1 hour here in this event, 1 hour to go in what is now the first 2-hour race here of 3 that we're going to have this season of the Synology GT3 Championship here on iRacing Live and RaceBot TV. I am #DoYouMind Jake Sperry, joined alongside, as always, by Mr. Connery Maddock. And well, Connery, we have ourselves a very, very good situation of battles going on. It's a 2-tier race right now between Iru Nom, Scott Brazier, Craig A. Williams, and his driver in P number 7 here, Jason Dilworth, because of the fact he's trying to go for the 2-stop compared to maybe the 3-stop strategy that many people are going to be trying to use here today. The question is going to be on who does come down to pit road. Remember, Nom was one of the first drivers to come in the first stint. We think he may be one of the first here on the second.
Yep, exactly, and we'll be expecting, well, Iru Nom down on pit road in the not-too-distant future, I would have thought, because he did pit around about lap 16 last time by, so still a couple of laps to go until he needs to head his way down on towards the lane again, as we have a crash with what is going to be the number 27 car. This is going to be Anthony Marsh of the Arozzi team, having a couple of issues here, and that was a single car incident coming through on the exit of the first Stavolo. Just got onto the gravel a little bit, like half of the left-hand side tires onto the gravel, and that is enough to spin that car towards the inside.
It's rare that we see gravel on modern circuits these days, and I have to say I do commend the decision for gravel at Stavolo. You don't often run wide, but of course that incident means that corner becomes very less forgiving. Very different to, say, a corner like La Source here at turn number 1, which Marsh is going through right now, where safety standards means that you give yourself about an acre to try and recover the vehicle. Although it is done for safety, gravel sometimes, it is nice, and it's a very nice aesthetic for driving and makes a circuit a lot more difficult, Connery.
Yeah, it does. It gives much less margin for error, because as you mentioned, there are some modern racetracks that have those huge runoffs, so you aren't really punished for making any mistakes. And I think it was actually Paul Ricard that actually has like a hybrid solution where the runoff is actually very, very abrasive on the tires, and if you go out onto that, then that is going to absolutely ruin the tires of the car. And I'd like to see that implemented at more tracks, because that could be interesting.
It could be with Circuit Paul Ricard. Of course, that circuit did get itself the licensing for next season's FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Will be very interesting to see how Pirelli tyres manage on that. But battle between Alan McCain here and Neil Bamber, the 10 and the 5 here for the final spot inside the top 10. Bamber's got his way back through on McCain, and these two have been changing positions like hot potato here today, Connery.
Yep, they really have, as Bamber and McCain. It's still going to be Bamber ahead of McCain, though. This is the battle for just getting inside into the top 10, and that's going to be a good result for both of these drivers. Both drivers up a couple of positions on their qualifying time. Both up exactly 3 positions, in fact, on their qualifying times. They head their way through Lefania as well. And the other close battle out on track right now is still for P number 2. Even though Scott Brazier did manage to get past Craig Williams, Williams hasn't really dropped off the back of him too much.
No, he hasn't. 0.8 of a second between the pair of them as they stay out yet again. You'd expect Iru Nom to drop down onto pit road this time by on his stint, lap 29 of the event. He came down in end of lap 15, start of lap 16, so maybe this lap, maybe the next lap might be the idea for Iru Nom to come down in. And the thing for Iru Nom is he is actually saving a little bit of fuel compared to the opening stint, and we have a car off there. Connery, who have you found?
Yeah, it was actually Craig A. Williams having an issue coming into the first part of the come, and he had to take his car all the way across the grass right there, and that has now lost him time compared to Scott Brazier on the order of around about 5.5 seconds he is behind now.
He has the big advantage, though, of about a 30-second buffer from him to Bram Renier. So Craig A. Williams knows he's not going to throw away a podium unless he completely bottles it into the wall. Bram Renier's right now, in terms of comparison, is only just rounding himself through Rivage, whereas driver Craig A. Williams, he's already through Pouon and now on the run to Fania. So that just shows you here the top 3 have been very, very dominant. Drivers in the mid-pack have lost quite a bit of time here during this event, Connery.
Yep, they really have, and you just see that by the front of the field is so spread out. Things are a little bit tighter down in your mid-pack and towards the back of the field, of course, but it shows a little bit of a difference in this series between the very fast drivers and the drivers and the regular drivers in this series. As actually, that was Simon Underhill I was just watching get passed by the car of John Roberts because Simon Underhill had a bit of a spin in the bus stop.
Yes, and there was contact between Irunom and Daniel Bailey as he forced his way through, did Irunom. Bailey was incredibly slow heading into the final chicane, but for that driver of Irunom, that was a very big risk he took there down the inside. If he needed to pit on that lap, he would have had to have tried to have made his way around a different, and we're going to bring you aerial coverage of this one, brought to you by And Wern Designs, the official graphics partner here at RaceSpot TV. And Irunom, God, he got away with one there. There's a cat with however many lives that he has.
Yeah, exactly. Irunom definitely had to use the door to try and shove his way through on the lap traffic right there. I wasn't exactly sure if the lap traffic was exactly aware of the leader trying to come through on him, because he did let another car of Roth just make his way through as well. And that was, again, another scary moment that Irunom really doesn't need to have in this race.
One vehicle running very wide is Peter Parnell. Lap traffic, trying to get out of the way, just having a few struggles here at the moment. The battle that is now starting to emerge here as Alan McCain is actually falling back here in this field a bit. Is now Davey Vittelbols trying to get into play. In fact, Alan McCain will drop down onto pit road, so will Neil Bamber. So the pair of them in together. Remember, Vittelbols is also on that alternative 2-stop here today, Connery. So Vittelbols, for that big incident early on, maybe with a little bit of damage, it seems that even though it has more fuel consumption normally, he seems to be very good at saving fuel.
Yeah, he is on the exact same strategy as the number 3 car of Jason Dilworth to the lap. They actually pitted in together right there. So Vittel's on the same strategy here, trying to make something work. I don't think he's going to be an opportunity for a race win, as we see a car stranded at the top of Eau Rouge stationary. This is Anthony Marsh, actually, number 27 machine. Heavy impact with the tire barrier. Actually, was that a shove from Jonathan Beresford coming up to the top of Eau Rouge? It was. Jonathan Beresford puts Anthony Marsh into the outside wall of Eau Rouge.
Ah, that's a big shame. The pair of them were battling for position there, and Anthony Marsh had that incident before. So Jonathan Beresford getting a little bit naughty, and there will be some ramifications, maybe, if that is looked at by the stewards, though. But I am looking at Irunom, who is expected to come down to pit road, and as scheduled, he drops in at about 1 hour, 10 minutes, 50 minutes to go. He can't make it here from here, but what he can do is get a splash and dash, and that is going to shorten his pit stop time by about 10 to 15 seconds, Connery. All that could be so crucial in this race with the 2-stoppers like Jason Dilworth.
Yep, exactly. Irunom, the only one except for Alan McCain down pit road, but obviously we saw Alan McCain have that absolutely humongous incident at the top of Eau Rouge as Irunom rounds himself around the middle of the pit lane right now. We'll have to see exactly what the stop time is and how much time he has gained by taking less fuel. We'll just have to see that one. Does he take all the fuel now and have a very, very short stop to the end, or is he going to split these stops even? We'll just have to wait and see, as he's still, actually Martin Gelanke is also going to join Irunom down on pit road as Irunom makes his way down the second part of pit road.
Keep an eye on Dion Phillips here in the 043 because he had to take a very, very shallow, a very, very steep line, shall we say, down to pit road. He was caught in 2 minds, and he'll have to be careful here, Connery, because unsafe pit entry might be a thing, and if he has been caught out for that, that's a stop and hold.
Yep, it really is. I'm just going to have a little bit of a look back to see what the pit entry was. Yeah, that was cutting it very, very close there. Actually tagged that inside pit wall there, did Dion Phillips. We'll have to see what the situation is and if he'll get a penalty for that unsafe pit road entry there, as Irunom is actually off and away. His stop was just around about 19-20 seconds on the lane. That was about 5 or 6 seconds faster than his first stop.
Yeah, so maybe tyres weren't changed. Maybe it might be a case for Irunom that he has just taken a little bit less fuel, knowing he's only got 50 minutes to go in this event, and knowing that he will have to pit one more time between now and the end of this event. So our eyes turn up towards the front of the field here to the likes of Scott Brazier, to the likes of Craig A. Williams here, and those drivers that do have to make those pit stops still Brazier, of course, is clear of Craig A. Williams, and they know that they don't have to battle too hard with each other right now. They are expected to come in either this lap or the next with their 45 minutes to go. I'm not sure they can make it down the fuel. In comes Scott Brazier then, who gets a huge tank slapper coming into pit road, but Craig A. Williams surprisingly stays out another lap. So for Craig A. Williams, he is trying to maybe either A, convert his stop, or B, try and get himself that extra lap so that he has to put in a little bit less at the end.
Yep, and a whole lap's worth of fuel here at such a long track as Spa-Francorchamps can actually be an absolutely huge amount of time saved in the final pit stops for Craig A. Williams. So that is what he is doing at the moment as Scott Brazier. He's running his way around to the second part of pit lane. Bram Renier is also going to head his way down onto the lane as well. So there's two drivers currently down on the lane. Your current provisional leader is, of course, Craig A. Williams, and it will be Jason Dilworth inheriting second place, that driver that's on the two-stop strategy. And, well, we'll have to see how that works out for him as he rounds his way around Lasso's corner.
Yes, also down onto pit road is driver Barry Baird, who has been in the wars all day long. He's calmed it down a bit, which is very interesting for him as he looks to try and get himself back into play in this event. But the thing for Barry Baird is, because these gaps are so large and the fact that he's not making that material gain, he has to do something different. But the problem is, there really isn't too much wiggle room that he can do, and even if there was wiggle room with the two-stop strategy or the tyre strategy, you probably would have already done that by now. So Barry Baird has committed himself to a line which doesn't give him too many routes out of.
No, and it's pretty much the only option that he has to go for at the moment, because obviously, as you said, that two-stop is off the cards for him right now. He cannot make it to around about 40 minutes remaining in this race, so he has to bring it down pit road to do this stop, and then it's going to be another stop before the end of the race for Barry Baird. As I've mentioned before, he hasn't really had a great day. He's been involved in incidents early on in this race that has put him down the field, even though he did qualify in that fifth place. He's been suffering in and around the top 10, and well, it doesn't look like his day is going to get any better, but he can prove me wrong.
Bram Reniers is very, very long on pit road, incredibly long actually down on pit road. If he's been speeding, that's something. Tyres maybe, but look at this. Dion Phillips has gone through on him, which is going to be huge news. You look at who's coming out now. That's Barry Baird, who's got enough on him right now, and Bram Reniers finally gets himself out and going again, and he's cost himself quite a few positions from a net best P4. It's not P4 anymore, it's down to P6, P7 here for Bram Reniers, and you have to feel for the Talk Freak man normally, because Bram Reniers, you normally expect him to be up there and fighting and scrapping P12 currently on circuit.
Yeah, man, I'm just wondering if he did actually take tyres. I saw the car actually go up on the jacks, it looks like. So he may have taken tyres right there for the number 35 machine at 30.5 seconds down on the lane. That is a very, very long stop for Bram Reniers. Must have taken tyres.
Must have taken tyres, maybe something even worse than that. So he's now behind the likes of Tony Baird, Barry Baird as well. Craig A. Williams, though, decides to bite the bullet. He's going to come down onto pit road, which is going to now hand over effective control of the race lead to this man, Jason Dilworth, then, as he makes his way to try and recover himself in the two-stop strategy. And for Dilworth, he knows that by doing this two-stop strategy here today, Connery, he knows that if anything happens, he is gaining, because he is on par with Irunom in the fact that he's losing at the same rate of a pit stop. You feel that he is still going to be in this fight come the end of this event if he gets there. But looking at that clock and the fact that he crossed the line at around 1 minute 15 there or thereabouts, it is a very, very marginal one, as he's got to go 2 laps before he gets himself down to the lane, by my reckoning, to make this stop work.
Yeah, and it was also very, very close on the times to around about 45 seconds at the halfway mark. So this, even if he manages to save until 40 minutes left, there's still no guarantee that this strategy will work for Jason Dilworth in terms of the race win. Anyway, it may still net him a very, very good finishing result indeed, considering how spread out the front of the field were. But it's still touch and go for the race win.
The difference on circuit between Nom and Dilworth is 18 seconds. 18 seconds, you feel, is one pit stop if you're going to go full. But Nom, as we know, did not go full on the fuel, and he's got to drop himself down to pit road one more time in this event. For Jason Dilworth, all he's got to do is just put in the lap times. At the moment, he is currently lapping at around 1 second a lap slower than the driver of Nom, doing a very good job. In fact, his quickest lap was on lap 28, a 2:17.2. So a 2:18.2 from Jason Dilworth. You have to say, hats off to him. He is doing a very good job at things. We'll see if he comes down onto pit road this time by under that Bridgestone signing there for advertisement reasons, into that chicane, a little bit deep, but stays out for another lap as we expected him to. He will cross the start finish line. We'll look at the timer on the clock to see if he is on par with it, and the answer is he is just about on par, as down on pit road is Dave White and also Rolf Just.
Yeah, so this is going to be very, very close indeed for Jason Dilworth. We suspect he may cut in this time by. Go on, Jake.
That's Barry Baird coming out to pit road for a second time. And if that is correct, that will either be unsafe pit exit or speeding on pit exit. So for Barry Baird, that is the horror weekend personified.
Yeah, it looks like he was 3 seconds in the box right there, so it may have been a stop and go, actually. Not entirely sure what is going on right there for Barry Baird, but his bad day continues to be very, very bad indeed.
Yeah, behind him is Ryan D. Walker, so that suggests E17 right now for Barry Baird. It's a horrible, horrible day, and he's got to make that recovery drive up through the field yet again. But
sorry, we just have a couple of technical issues there with Jake right there, as actually it's going to be Jason Withrow down on towards the lane right now for his stop right now. 41 minutes and 30 seconds, so I doubt that Jason Withrow will be able to go towards the end of this race on the tank unless he has a mega fuel saving stint. Meanwhile, Jason Dilworth still out there on track trying to hit that 40-minute mark. He has he may come in this time by, which would be very, very close on the field coming towards the end of this race, but it is possible for Jason Dilworth to get towards the end of this race on the two-stop strategy. Everyone else around him in contention for the race win. Nom, Bart Dillman, Scott Breezer, Craig A. Williams, and others. They are all on the three-stop strategy. Jason Dilworth, the highest placed car, currently trying desperately for this two-stop strategy. He heads his way down into the bus stop. Let's see if he comes in this time by, as actually, yes, he does come in this time by with about 40 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. That is going to be a very, very close coming towards the end of this race, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. In terms of the gap, it was getting close to around 20 seconds between Jason Dilworth and Nom when Jason Dilworth headed his way down on towards pit road, but now Nom actually has to make one more stop, whereas after Jason Dilworth is done with this stop, that's the last one he'll have to make for the rest of this race, Jake.
Yeah, it certainly is. Apologies for that one, ladies and gentlemen. Davey Vittelbols will also jump down in at exactly the same time. So he's on that two-stop, as is Bart Daleman, and this has been the big game that everyone has been trying to play here today. Craig A. Williams now will make his run then around the corners, as will Scott Brazier to make his way past. Now, the question is going to be where Dilworth actually comes out, because if he finds himself in some forms of battles here today, Connery, in these final few minutes of this race, the last 40 minutes, he's in trouble, because he doesn't want to be fighting people. He just needs to play time trial, just clean, consistent laps, get him to the end. Even if he doesn't win this race, a top 3 on the two-stop strategy is a massive success after all the strategy calls that have been played.
Yeah, it would be an absolutely massive success, as you say, even if he doesn't win the race. It's just a matter of circumstance that he has this chance right now. And he is still down on the lane right now. He's going for the full, what is going to be 60% fuel tank right here. And he's going to be off and away with about 25 seconds stationary on the lane. And let's see where he comes out in relation to other drivers, though. A couple of cars just going by. That was Dion Phillips and Dave White. as well. And there's also going to be a Tony Bed, maybe. Tony Bed's just heading his way outside up the top of Eau Rouge as Tony Bed gets a huge tank slapper coming off the top of Eau Rouge. But I think Jason Doeth is safely ahead of the number 4.
Yes, and that is going to be a jump because he did lose that position in the last stint to Tony Bed. Bed, of course, had his issues coming down towards pit road, and so for Tony Bed having to check up and actually now running wide at Les Combes, he's pushing too hard because he had that big wiggle, concentration loss, and he's now got to find himself all over again just because he has been struggling and losing those times. And he has to be careful, actually, for Bram Reniers behind him, because although he's 11 seconds back, and this lap has been a pretty horrible opening for Tony Bed, Bram Reniers is doing 2:17.8 compared to the last lap, 2:18.6 from Tony Bed. So he is closing down here as Bram Reniers at a rate of almost a second a lap.
Yeah, exactly. Even though Tony Bed had these couple of mistakes on this lap, Bram Reniers was already catching on the previous couple of laps as well. So Bram Reniers definitely looking to make a charge of it, coming in towards what is going to be one of the final stops for Bram Reniers. Well, he's actually going to be, he's going to have to make another stop, is Bram Reniers. Same with Euronom, same with Scott Brazier, same with Craig A. Williams. Most of the other drivers at the front of the field have to make those stops, as it's going to be Tony Bed coming up on some lap traffic right now. This is going to be Dave White. He's had his fair share of being a lapped car incidents, shall we say. Let's see how he negotiates this one. Is he going to negotiate it at Blanchimont? That'll be a very, very dangerous one. And actually, he does. Oh, a little bit. And parking on the apex right there. And again, that's another situation with Dave White. I don't think he quite knows where to put his car when he's being lapped.
Yes, and it is difficult to know where that vehicle is going to be put alongside, and Blanchimont is not the place you want to do it, so to the outside went Tony Bed to make that position, and he managed to just about survive that one. A vehicle that I have seen on pit road right now is Simon Underhill. This is probably his last stop of the day here, and if he is on this final stop, he is now very severely lapped. I don't think it has been an incident, I don't believe. Well, in fact, he has a very buckled and bent Synology machine, so he might have just been involved in a massive crash. So for Simon Underhill, case has to be made. Horrible day for him today, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely horrible day. As we see, Ashley, that was Ashley Ryan Roberts coming down on towards pit road for the Arotti team right there. And he is actually going to be good for the end of the race if he fills that fuel tank all the way up to the finish. It's actually for the 007, that's Simon Underhill. He had a little bit of a flip, shall we say, after a route.
Oh, goodness me. You don't ever want to roll one of these vehicles. They are, of course, very safe with the safety standards that are rigorously imposed on these GT3 machines, but any time a vehicle rolls, you have to say it is a scary moment for drivers. And, well, for Simon Underhill, he is going to be very frustrated by that. Could use a fast repair unless he has completely teetotaled that vehicle. I am looking at this battle going on between Ryan Walker and Soren Kroos. Kroos has made his way through up into the top 20, but for Soren Kroos today here, Connery, he's been invisible, and it's not often you say that. Soren Kroos you always see up inside or in and around your top 10. He is struggling today.
Yeah, he hasn't really had a lot of camera time, not really been involved in all too many battles that we've seen. And as you said, that is very unusual. Usually a driver that's in and around the top 10, sometimes the top 5 on a very good day. There's a couple of other drivers down on pit road as well. Jonathan Beresford heads his way down pit road. But yeah, I agree with you. Soren Kroos hasn't really been on form.
Connery, I think Jonathan Beresford's out of fuel here as he tries to make his drag to pit road, and he is on pit road, and I don't think he's going to make his box, even though it's downhill here, but it's uphill when he gets to the corner, and he is slowing 8 kph. I think Beresford's got to take a tow.
Yeah, and that is going to be the first victim of the fuel game. Maybe the only victim, who knows? But running out on pit lane, that is very close to just being able to make it. But for Beresford, he just needed an extra quarter of a gallon, I'd say, and he'd be able to make it.
Yeah, a quarter of a gallon would have been very, very useful. Just been looking at Irunom's lap times over the last few laps, and it is very clear that he didn't take tyres in that last stop, because he's done a 2:17.1 last time by. Other laps he's done 2:17.4, 2:17.2, 2:17.3, and this was the man who was doing 2:16s earlier on in this event. So compare him to Jason Dilworth doing 2:18.3s. It is still a second a lap that he is losing, but yet again, Jason Dilworth is in that fight, and even if he does lose out on the stop by 5-10 seconds, Scott Brazier is only 13 seconds back, Craig A. Williams 20 seconds back. At this rate, I believe it's going to be a top 4 at least for him in this strategy. He could upset Bushfink, and the former Bushfink, you could argue, in this series, of Irunom.
Yep, exactly. As we have a look towards the number 18 machine and others, this is Ryan Atmore, Soren Cruz, and Ryan D. Walker all in this train now. So here comes Soren Cruz, maybe down the inside of the second Stavlo on the replace-based Mercedes of Ryan Atmore, but no, he's just going to delay that move just a little bit, maybe looking to be on the brakes coming down towards the bus stop. And Soren Cruz is just going to use that straight line speed of the McLaren to close up, not going to make the move into Blanchimont, and well, he's not going to do a Verstappen impression. It actually pushes very, very wide. A huge twitch from Soren Cruz, and actually makes him come under threat from Ryan D. Walker heading down onto the brakes into the bus stop. Will Ryan D. Walker be able to make a little bit of a cutback move? No. Soren Cruz is actually going to head his way down pit road. And I've got to say, it's only really been the McLarens that have had trouble with the rear end today.
Yes, and they have that ability to be very squirrely because they have so much top speed. You normally see them scrimping a little bit on the downforce, so they struggle more through the corners today, especially when you got a track condition which is quite cloudy, which you can't see up in the skies. But track conditions, it's only 21 degrees on the circuit, which means tyres are very cold and they are very slippery, and more mistakes are prone to happen here today, Connery, and that's something that drivers are struggling with, even as well with the likes of the northeast wind that is there at about 9 kilometers an hour. That will also be playing a factor.
Yeah, could also be a factor. As I'm actually having a look back to this, this battle on strategy that's going on between your leaders and Jason Dilworth. Jason Dilworth has just clicked over around about 1 minute behind Irunom, and now last time down onto pit lane, Irunom had around about 1 minute 22 second delay coming down the pit lane. That's the amount of time he spent on pit lane. So round that up to about 1 minute 25 to allow for slowing and speeding up off of pit lane. That means if Irunom pits now, which I don't think he will, that would mean that Jason Dilworth has around about a 25-second advantage coming off of the lane. But then again, Irunom, he's catching around about a second. He would be actually catching around about a second and a couple of tenths a lap. So this could be very, very close coming towards the end.
It's a tight battle, but it's a game of chess that we're seeing here today at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. It's not the battles of close positions here, there, and everywhere. Today, it is about who crunches the numbers the best compared to everybody else. I'm keeping an eye on this battle side by side. Jason Withrow in the 59, Bart Daleman in the 39. Daleman on the two-stop strategy as well, making the position that he needs to on the driver of Jason Withrow. Clears him very well because there is a certain lap car of Soren Cruz just waiting behind, of course, that one lap down. But for Bart Daleman, he knows that he can get past drivers like Shipstone, and he is going to have to finish the day behind drivers like Vittelbols, who is still in position number 9. And even on his strategy call, he's only a minute 30. He could sneak his way up into the top 5 with this result.
That could potentially be the case. It was actually a trouble with Ryan Atmore, number 18 machine, heading his way out of the bus stop right there, trying to get the traction down on the curb on the outside there, and that's only going to spell trouble. Those rear tires all light up, not going to give any grip, any traction off the corner, and that just let Ryan D. Walker through.
Yes, and Ryan D. Walker then getting himself that +1 position, getting himself a little bit happier here today, currently in position number 15, +2 overall for the work that and the ethic that he has been putting in, as I try to get a few words out there, shall we say. Irunom's last lap at 2:13.7. Scott Brazier, though, is one of the fastest men out on circuit right now, doing himself a 2:16.9. Took another 4 tenths out of the driver of Irunom, but he's left this one a little bit too little too late today, Connery, because 13 seconds in the last half an hour, that's not going to be good enough. Scott Brazier is probably second at best, running some very nice laps, but he knows he can't catch up to the Thrustmaster car.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, my timing app right now is just telling me that when Irunom crosses the line right now, we'll have around about 13 laps to go in the rest of this event. And catching 13 seconds in 13 laps, that is obviously elementary school arithmetic. That needs 1 second a lap to even have a chance of taking the race win for Scott Brazier, and he's not hitting that right now.
No, he isn't. He's only catching about 0.4 of a second a lap. Irunom, does he respond, though, to this lap time of the immediate threat that he knows behind him? He does, 2:17 flat. So he does start to pick up the pace here compared to the driver of Scott Brazier. Of course, they are teammates technically, but the opportunity came for Irunom to go to Thrustmaster for this series alone, and he decided to do that. In fact, he gains time on Brazier, who only manages a 2:17.1. So gap stabilized, I do believe, right now. Connor, I'm not sure there is much that can be done in terms of this one for any real changes to happen.
Yeah, and I think most of that lap time was lost due to Scott Brazier running a little bit wide during the first apex of the bus stop at the end of the lap, and that is going to be more than a couple of tenths of a second loss coming through there, as Alan McCain looks to be having a couple of issues right there. Yeah, he stopped on the side of the track, single car incident coming into Lecombe, and just the back end just broke away from him. No other explanation.
Yeah, and that's a very, very easy thing to happen. Just over rotation of the rear axle just spins that car around. And, well, for Alan McCain, it's going to be an 1,000,000-point turn as he tries to get himself back going again. And he does, and he's behind Irunom by a fair margin. He's got Scott Brazier now behind to deal with. Didn't actually lose a position there, did Alan McCain. So, in terms of his battle with Ryan Walker, he had probably about half a minute to work with. So, lonely day now for Alan McCain.
Yep, exactly. And now that, well, it's not going to be too lonely because there's going to be Scott Brazier coming up to lap him relatively soon. But yeah, he has an absolutely huge gap over the car of Ryan D. Walker. And Ryan D. Walker's actually heading his way down into Rivage right now. Meanwhile, Alan McCain is coming through the Lefania chicane. So that is the gap between those two cars at this moment in time. Closest battle on track, though, will be between the 39 and the number 59. This is going to be for P number 11, Bart Daleman versus Jason Withrow. And I think both of these drivers are actually still maybe trying for that two-stop strategy. And actually, so they have to be really careful on field here.
Yeah, they really do, and they can't afford to battle too much more for Jason Withrow. It's a case of just hold on to the rear of the vehicle that he is looking at right now. He was, I believe, too marginal here for Jason Withrow. I believe he may have to splash and dash this one home. Maybe not so for Bart Daleman, who knows that he just has to make it as the gap just closes in, but he won't be close enough with the driver of Jason Withrow as they head themselves towards that Lecombe section again. But for the time being, we are just very quickly going to step aside because we have a few mentions here from our sponsors here today. We'll be back with the Synology GT3 Championship after this. We are inside the final 30 between now and the end of this event. You could argue the final 25 here at Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. We're under the floodlights on a very, very cloudy and overcast evening that we have here in the Belgian hills. I am hashtag Do You Mind Jake Sperry, joined as always here by Connery Maddock here on iRacing Live and RaceBot TV for the Synology GT3 Championship, brought to you in cooperation with TMS Motorsport. TMS Motorsport offers a comprehensive range of tuning parts for all makes and models with competitive pricing, worldwide delivery and great customer service. Visit them today at tmsmotorsport.co.uk. This race, for those of you who are just joining, it's not a battle on time in terms of on circuit. It's a battle about time on the pits, because Irunom on the 3-stop strategy does a 2:17.1 once again, gets himself more time on the driver of Scott Brazier as the vehicle comes down to pit road for Barry Bed for his last stop of the day. But the battle is not between Irunom and Scott Brazier per se, but rather Irunom and Jason Dilworth. Dilworth starting to struggle a little bit here on the tyres as now Tony Baird is closing up to him. But the crucial thing is Dilworth is hitting his marks and doesn't have to pit again between now and the end of the race. His fuel will be marginal for the final laps, Connery.
Yeah, exactly, and there's a little bit of lap traffic to negotiate here of Rolf Just, as actually Rolf Just gets well out of the way of Jason Dilworth's way. And there's also going to be Tony Baird here that may spoil Jason Dilworth's party. He has been catching over the past couple of laps. Actually, he caught around about a second last time by, so it was actually a great lap for Tony Baird rather than a terrible lap from Jason Dilworth. And this is the last thing that Jason Dilworth needs, to be battling with another car while he is still in with an advantage in terms of the race lead.
Yes, only a 2:17.2 his fastest lap, Jason Dilworth. He did a 2:18.7 competitive for the last 2 laps that he has done. But the issue he has here with Iru Nom is that Nom is about a 1.5 seconds quicker consistently in these latter stages of this event. So in terms of the time that Dilworth was making, where it was a second a lap at one stage, Nom's known that he's got the hurry up now, so it's a 1.5 seconds. And that means Jason Dilworth's charge for the race win is a lot more difficult. Second is still on the cards, even though Brazier's running very consistently at the same pace. But Iru Nom is doing enough, maybe, just to cover this for the splash and dash.
Yeah, I think he's doing definitely, I wouldn't say enough, but he's doing all that he can. And the only judgment of whether he is actually has done enough will come at the end of this race. As Tony Baird did manage to get past Jason Dilworth, and now I think Jason Dilworth can actually use Tony Baird to his advantage here to maybe save a little bit more fuel and maybe just drag him along the racetrack at similar lap times to what he was doing, but with less fuel. We'll just have to wait and see, and we'll also have to wait and see when Iru Nom, Scott Brazier et al. All come in for their final pit stops.
Yes, because we have just 22 minutes and under here in this event. By my reckoning, that's going to be somewhere between 9 to 10 laps of this event, and 9 to 10 laps is going to be about 13 seconds for Jason Dilworth. The gap here between him and Iru Nom in terms of the 1:20 that we were thinking of, 1:25, Connery, that is very, very tight right now, and it could be the case that Jason Dilworth is holding on for love nor money to a very rare race victory. Dilworth has been a driver who has not had the best of pace throughout the season. He's been very hit and miss, but here he's doing it on his brain more rather, shall we say, than the ability that he has underneath the hood and with that vehicle. Don't get me wrong, he is a very good driver, but the fact that he is using his brain to his advantage and now using toe to get himself through this one with a 2:18.6, you have to say, very good job from Jason Dilworth. He has brought his brain into this battle compared to the brawn of Iru Nom.
Yep, exactly, and obviously if Jason Dilworth does manage to get ahead of Iru Nom when Iru Nom comes in for his final stop, but then we have to call into question Iru Nom's racing, wheel-to-wheel racing ability. We mentioned it before in terms of talking about him and Scott Brazier. I have to wonder who comes out on top in a battle between himself and Jason Dilworth.
Soren Cruz has just had a spin at Fania, just having a look at him. That was a solo effort, was very heavy over the curbs, and McLarens and curbs don't go together, especially at this circuit where the curbs are a lot higher, shall you say, than some of the other circuits that they will visit during the season. So for Soren Cruz, the poor day personified with that spin. He is down in position number 19 overall for the day. 1 lap down, last of the vehicles actually. 1 lap down, just gone 2 laps down as Iru Nom went past. So for him, it's going to be a case of try and survive. Iru Nom, race leader in. This is the money moment, Connery.
Yeah, this is the moment that this race will probably be decided on, at least one of the moments. Irunom down on towards pit road. Scott Brazier, interestingly enough, stays out at least one more lap, and Craig A. Williams is coming into the bus stop right now. Let's see if he heads his way down pit road as well, and the answer to that one is going to be no. So Scott Brazier and Craig A. Williams are actually going to stay out here. Where is Jason Dilworth? Jason Dilworth is heading his way through the Lefania chicanes right now. He has just lost a little bit of the toe to Tony Baird. As Irunom, he's just heading his way down on towards the second part of the lane right now. Still not stopped yet, of course, since his pit lane is one right at the front, so he has a long way to get stopped here as Jason Dilworth just heads his way up towards Blanchimont. This is going to be very, very close, Jake.
It is, and Jason Dilworth will be hoping that the pit stop is long, but the fuel is going to be very sparingly used from the driver of Irunom. So he's looking for his box now, looking for a way to get himself down onto pit road. He spies it, he moves hard to the right, and now angles that vehicle for the greatest run out of pit road he is in. There are no tyres going on that vehicle, but there is fuel being pumped straight into it. So for Jason Dilworth, he's now got to make that charge. He's got himself last source hairpin only left to go, but for Irunom, it's a case of he is coming out to pit road right now, and you know what? I think he's clear. I think he is very, very clear, and you know what? Irunom has covered that two-stop very, very handily, and you know what this also could mean, Connery? It means it might not be a race victory, but this could be so much more. This could be the difference between a podium or not here for the driver of what is going to be Jason Dilworth.
Yeah, and that was actually a very, very short stop as well for Irunom. 15 and a half seconds or there and thereabouts. So that is very, very interesting indeed. And we'll have to see what the pit stop times are in terms of Scott Brazier and Craig A. Williams. But I think Irunom actually extended that second stint so that he can only have a short run to the end, only put in a little bit of fuel. So that is very interesting development indeed. But we got to say, though, Jason Dilworth, even though he's not looking for the race win now, he still has a very good opportunity at taking the podium, and that will be a fantastic result for him.
It certainly will. Scott Brazier, track extends at Blanchimont, can't afford to do that too many times, taking too many liberties. He jumps down in, he's got the call that he needs to make that stop. Does Craig A. Williams stay out like he did the time before compared to that driver of Scott Brazier? He does. So now Craig A. Williams decides to stay out that extra lap. Scott Brazier now is running the gauntlet compared to Jason Dilworth.
Yep, exactly, and this will be another thing that we're going to watch here. Does Jason Dilworth manage to get past Scott Brazier? We'll have to see as Scott Brazier heads his way down onto the lane. Jason Dilworth just heading his way out of Stabler too, so this is a little bit of deja vu right here, Jake. But Craig A. Williams, of course, staying out yet another lap, so he'll likely be able to have a shorter stop than both Scott Brazier and Irunom, so we'll just see what happens here.
We will see what happens. Jason Dilworth is trying everything to get himself through. The magic number to look at compared to him and Nom is about 15 seconds. There or thereabouts could put him in range with that driver of Scott Brazier, who is looking to get himself onto the lane. He is still driving to try and find it, so it looks like it's a long stop. It will be the stop and hold that you normally expect to see here, as he just looks to put in a little bit of fuel, no tyres as we seem to expect. The difference though between Dilworth and going to be Nom is 13 seconds. This is quite marginal. In fact, I lie, it's going to be 9 seconds between the pairs, and Scott Brazier coming out has just about held it off. So Dilworth loses second, he might lose third as well in this situation. Scott Brazier though, he's just about safe.
Yeah, and that stop was 5 seconds slower than even Irunom. So very, very short stop again from another 4GT. Maybe the 4GT's a little bit better on fuel than the rest of the cars. Another couple of cars down on pit road, Bram Lears, Neil Bamber and Ryan Atmore. As, correction there. Scott Brazier was actually 5 seconds faster on the stops, not 5 seconds slower. Battle between actually that was Bram Lears coming down onto pit road and Adam Shipstone just managing to get himself past. And now all eyes turn towards Craig A. Williams in that number 42 car. He'll probably have to come down this time or next time by to top it off in terms of the fuel towards the end of this race. And then it'll be another battle of see who comes out first between Jason Dilworth and Craig A. Williams, like it was with Nom and Brazier.
Yes, it's all about the lightest of splashes and dashes here certain drivers. Williams stays out for another lap, so he wants to make sure that that splash and dash is about as close as he possibly can. His time, a 2:17.5. Dilworth's last lap was a 2:18.7, so that was 1.2 seconds that was being taken off, and every time he goes around and gets that 1.2 seconds, that's an extra 1.2 seconds in the bank that Craig A. Williams has in his ability to use. He needs probably, I'd say, about 45, 50 seconds, shall we say, Connery, now to make himself safe.
Yeah, I think that is the case as well, as battling between number 10 and the number 5. This was Alan McCain and Neil Bamber, and Bamber has dropped down through the field a little bit right there. He's actually lost 3 seconds on that time by, as actually Alan McCain taking a little bit of a trip across the grass, across the gravel coming into the come. So actually he now surrenders that position right after gaining it. Dion Phillips down on towards pit road.
Yeah, Dion Phillips down to pit road. Neil Bamber had just come out of pit road, so Dion Phillips from 4th is now going to see Jason Dilworth go past, and that result that he wants so badly just fall away in the final 15 minutes of this event. And for Dion Phillips, it has been a very good drive from him today, Connery. Mired with a couple of mistakes here and there, a couple of spins, but for Dion Phillips, he's just got to eliminate those 2 spins, and he would be a very successful and a very heavy point scorer in this series.
Yeah, and I have to say that about all of his other performances as well. He's a very, very rapid driver on his day, but there are just these little mistakes, these little errors that just slip in here and there that end up meaning that he's finishing further down the field than he perhaps should. As traffic involving Jason Dilworth right here, he has to brake to try and negotiate some traffic. Martin Brandon and Jonathan Beresford both in his way right there. He's actually negotiates them before Rivage there. And again, looking back to Craig A. Williams, he's heading his way on the run down towards Blanchimont, and surely has to come in this time by.
Yeah, he has to pit somewhere between now and the next 15 minutes, but we know he is going to be very, very marginal on that fuel. He came down in the likes of, say, lap 33, so he maybe has that ability to get himself close. Car goes into pit road ahead in form of Alan McCain, and Peter Parnell there also having a massive issue. Yes, Williams does stay out again, but Alan McCain drives down onto pit road, and even though that battle was close between the pair of them, McCain and Bamber, that just shows you Alan McCain was not on the same strategy ploy.
Yep, exactly, as Alan McCain heading his way down on towards pit road. And that was, well, he was going to be very, very close to what was going to be Neil Bamber, but obviously Alan McCain having to make his final stop to get towards the end of this race. That fuel tank won't make it as it currently stands on the field, but it will after he gets his stop done. And it's also going to be Tony Baird also on towards pit road as well, as he has quite a bit of damage to that Seagate machine right there, that Mercedes. He is going to be there for quite a while.
Yes, and Peter Parnell is beached now in the wall, finally gets himself going, but I think that's going to be the end of his race there, as he is beached at the final chicane. But there is a bigger battle here going on between Scott Brazier and Iru Nom. Difference in times was a 2:17.2. Compare that to Iru Nom 2:17.4, 2/10. But it just brings that gap down to about 6 seconds. But this is even bigger right now, as it's going to be all about, Connery, how much fuel actually does Craig A. Williams put in that vehicle, because he can get himself up to second if he is good enough to get the jump on Scott Brazier.
Yeah, exactly. So we may be seeing a fight inside the podium positions once Craig A. Williams manages to make his final pit stop. He's coming through the Lafania chicane right now. And it only is a matter of time before Craig A. Williams brings that Team Bushing Racing Mercedes down on towards the lane. He has a little bit of traffic ahead, and then he has to deal with Neil Bamber, so he might be well advised to come in and pit stop right now to save himself from hitting the traffic on his in-lap, as Adam Shipstone is going to head his way down onto the lane as well as actually Peter Parnell. Peter Parnell actually did manage to make his way down onto pit lane.
Yeah, that's very nice to see him getting out of the way of everyone else. Adam Shipstone, yes, as we said, on pit road right now. Who else was on pit road? Tony Baird here, who has dropped a lot of time, and that could be very detrimental for Tony Baird. Just going to take a look at his vehicle. It seems there's a little bit of damage. The engine is revving, so Tony Baird could be dropping a fair way down this field. And for Tony Baird, up near the top of the standings, inside the top 10, not the day that you want to see in the final stages.
No, and actually he's been stationary for getting very, very close to 2.5 seconds right now, and that's a very, very long stop indeed. Maybe trying to get that damage repaired, as we see a battle still going on between the number 11 and number 18. This is Ryan D. Walker and Ryan Atmore, and actually Ryan D. Walker managed to get past during the Lacombe chicane right there, just making that pass complete. And here's a replay of Tony Baird.
Yeah, Tony Baird getting that big incident, and what a shame it is for Tony Baird to be involved at such a late stage. No one wants to see the race go away in the final few minutes, but sometimes it is the way that it sometimes just happens. I do want to keep an eye on Craig A. Williams. He has stayed out again. We're now inside the final 10 minutes of this race. I don't think there's pixie dust for Craig A. Williams to survive. It might be the very, very briefest of splashes and dashes. It's 5 laps. Looking at his strategies, looking at when he's come down in, he's come in around that 16th, 17th lap of the race every single time. And from when he pitted lap 34, he's got to go about 4 laps here on the fuel, Connery. And 4 laps is about 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, maybe 9 minutes. I'm not sure he can go 10. That's pushing the boat out a bit. Maybe he might try and go to the end here and try and steal it away from Nom, but if he runs out of fuel, he's got 40 seconds to work with to get himself home. That's the big difference maker.
Yep, and even when he has to come down onto the lane, he'll only be stationary for just a matter of seconds, 4 laps worth of fuel, and if he does come in this time by. So we'll just have to wait and see right here in terms of the number 42 machines race. Meanwhile, the gap between Iru Nom, Scott Brazier, they're still hanging around about 6 seconds at this point. And actually, Craig Williams, yeah, he's down on towards the lane.
He is in, and he needed to be. Oh, goodness me, he's so close to that wall. He is taking every legitimate way of going through, and that might just worry him a little bit, because if there is too much of a scrape there, the marshals may say, no, you got to take that up and get that back going again. That could cost him time. So for Craig A. Williams, he is taking every liberty because he knows the battle with Scott Brazier is on, and if that, the battle with Jason Dilworth is on for the final spot on the podium. Positions 2, 3, and 4 certainly not secure and safe here. Iru Nom will now look to round himself through the bus stop chicane and re-inherit the race lead inside the final 7.5 minutes here around the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, looking for race win number 7 of the season plus. And you have to feel Iru Nom is untouchable when he gets into form like this. Looking for the box still though is Craig A. Williams, who will look to touch the box and get himself the lightest splash of fuel to get him through the last 8 minutes of this race. He hits the box. Scott Brazier may just go past. Jason Dilworth though rounds himself out of the last source corner. For Craig A. Williams, it's a hold. He gets himself going, but now he is tight. He is marginal. Dilworth will now make the run up Eau Rouge. Williams does have to just marginally move himself to the right. And well, now Jason Dilworth is through. We have ourselves a battle for the podium.
Yes, we do, and it's going to be a battle that we certainly have to watch with very, very open eyes. Not just because it's very, very dark here at Spa, but it's going to be Jason Dilworth versus Craig A. Williams. There's a little bit of lap traffic that Craig A. Williams has to consider in the very stricken replace space car of Barry Baird as they head their way down into Ravage Corner. Jason Dilworth, he has about a couple seconds of a gap to play with right here, with about 3.5 laps to go, and well, this could be a very, very close battle for the final step in the podium.
Barry Baird is putting in 2:16.7s. He's got nothing to lose, so he will go at it full hammer and pelt, and the fact that he is could disrupt Jason Dilworth if he does choose to try and unlap himself here in this situation. Problems for the 043 machine though out on circuit. That's Dion Phillips running into a big issue. He's down onto pit road yet again, and that horror show has just continued, and it's really, really a shame to see Dion Phillips struggle in such a manner, and this will not be helping Jason Dilworth. The fact that he is battling here against lap traffic, Connery, this is huge for the race to the podium.
Yep, exactly, and well, that is going to be a very stricken Dion Phillips down on towards pit road, but Barry Baird could be a factor, as you say here, in deciding this podium fight, because I think he's going to maybe just try and get past Jason Dilworth here, unless there's too much of a gap between himself and the car ahead of him on track. Actually, down towards the inside goes Barry Baird on the car a lap ahead of him, and that is going to be Barry Baird through. But how much time has it lost Jason Dilworth? It's also Dilworth is compromised on the exit of the bus stop. That gap has visually closed between himself and Williams.
Yes, it's 0.6 of a second, but Barry Baird had every single right to make that happen. Last source turn number 1. This is crucial because draft is available now for Jason Dilworth, who is on the very old tyres. 2:91 the last lap. Craig A. Williams will be hounding all over him at 2 minutes 17 lap times, at 2 seconds a lap quicker. It's time to get the battles on, and now there's more traffic in front of him. Baird takes it, and they're all gonna go 6s and 7s. They all survive somehow, but that for Jason Dilworth was heart in mouth. For Craig A. Williams, heart in mouth. Alan McCain will now unlap himself, trying to go through the melee, but he'll think better of it. Wow, we nearly lost everyone.
Yep, that was Barry Baird running into the back of a car that was coming off of pit lane. Actually, not coming off of pit lane, it actually ran wide, coming over the top of Eau Rouge, and that was very, very unsafe to be that slow at such a blind corner, a blind section of the racetrack where you can't really see what's over the crest of Eau Rouge, and that is a very, very scary incident.
It is, and business in the words of good old JR, who's just picked up in the final 5 here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, the battle for the podium. Dilworth on the strategy game against Craig A. Williams, who had to make the last little splash and dash as we expected he had to do. So now it comes down to a fact. Craig A. Williams has better tyres. Dilworth has not changed them for the entirety of this event and is just not running the lap times that you know he can. Craig A. Williams is now right back onto the rear yet again, and he knows he doesn't have too long to make this one work. Soren Kroos will get out of the way of lap traffic ahead. Just looking at the time though for that driver of going to be Iru Nom, as he will make his way to the start finish line. Is not going to be long at all left in this event, but for Craig A. Williams, he has the draft now compared to that driver of Jason Dilworth, and he knows he's just got to be close enough to make it happen, maybe on the brakes down into that final chicane as we've seen it happen before. No, not going to happen, and even more crucially, it's 2 laps to go for Dilworth, who could run out of fuel.
Yeah, 2 laps to go to make something happen as they head their way out of the final corner across the line. And, well, it's going to be either this lap or next for Craig A. Williams to try and make a move happen. Or is he going to make a move happen now, coming down to last source? No, he had a little bit of a think about it. He just showed the nose coming down into the corner, and a very good run coming out of last source. This could be the pass for P number 3 coming down into Eau Rouge. Are they going to go side by side through here? Surely not, as Craig A. Williams backs out that move. That would be a very, very scary moment with 2 cars going side by side up through a very dangerous section of track as Craig A. Williams gets a very, very good run coming off the top of Radulon. I think he makes this move down on the brakes. It's going to have to be Jason Dilworth defending on the inside line, but he's going to lose out before the braking zone.
Yeah, he is, and that's a big shame. Dilworth now down into 4th, and it was a strong defense, and it was a good effort, but he knew that it was going to be inevitable compared to Craig A. Williams. And for Jason Dilworth, he is happy in the fact that it's Davy Vittelbols that is behind him on the same strategy as well, about half a minute down the road. So he knows that if he runs out of fuel, surely Vittelbols runs out of fuel, surely Bart Daleman runs out of fuel as well. And his battle with Bram Reniers is also very, very close. 7 seconds between them. So if any one of those 3, P4, 5 or 6, runs out of fuel, Bram Reniers could get a career best finish.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just looking at the lap times for Jason Dilworth as well. I think he's in a mega fuel saving mode at this moment in time, because the past 2 laps have both been in the 2-minute 19. So a 2-minute 19.1 and a 2-minute 19.6 as well. And maybe that fuel isn't going to last for Jason Dilworth to the end.
Coast and coast, not lift and coast, coast and coast.
The apex.
Yeah,
oh my God, Daniel Bailey.
Oh my word, and they all have to go around Daniel Bailey there. Bailey having that big moment on the run into Rivage, and you know what? That is no fuel there for Daniel Bailey, it seems, and that is a victim of one trying to go even further. Barry Baird is turned around again as he comes out of Curve of Paul Frere, caught the gravel by going far too wide and almost caught Dilworth in the process.
Yeah, that was very, very close for Jason Dilworth, as he had to swerve towards driver's right-hand side of the track just to avoid that, to try and keep that P number 4. He worked oh so hard to try and save the fuel to try and achieve, as it's going to be one lap to go for Iru Nam. He's heading his way through Eau Rouge right now, and that was very, very close to actually being the end of the race there. Any slower driver at the front of the field, and we might be seeing the checkered flag out.
Last lap of the race, it's a 2:25 for Jason Dilworth, who is now coasting, absolutely crawling, nursing that vehicle home. It reminds you of a very different scenario, the likes of, say, you look at Hamilton versus Raikkonen at Spa 8, where the deluge happened in the last 3 laps. But the splash and dash certainly has worked for certain drivers in this field today. Drivers like Iru Nam, Scott Brazier, Craig A. Williams, who have done so well to get themselves into position in these early goings and get themselves around this circuit. But the story has to go, how long can Jason Dilworth survive on his crawl around the circuit? He has 25 seconds on Davy Vittelbots, who is just coming out of the left-hander known as Radion, so he's not got long, does Jason Dilworth, to really survive at 175 kilometers an hour. He may just be out of fuel. He is really struggling to get himself around. We'll keep an eye on that one then as it happens, because it will be a shame to see him out of fuel as well. But rounding himself through curve, Paul Frere is the driver who has been all-conquering, all-dominant, and absolutely sensational all race long. He has done so well to make something happen, and well, Iru Nam has just done the perfect race. Really, start to finish, you couldn't ask any more out of him. Kept himself out of trouble. Maybe it was a little mean, as he actually has to go around the vehicle of Daniel Bailey, stricken, trying to get himself home. Huge scare in the last lap, but round the final 2 corners, Iru Nam is yet again the race victor, and the title one hand on it at the halfway stage, surely, for the 041. Great job, Brazier in second. Williams will take third. For Jason Dilworth, though, Beresford is through on him. Barry Baird will look to go through. Vittelbots is not too far behind. He's just entering the corner of Stavolo. And you talk about Jason Dilworth, he's a Blanchimont. I think he's just safe, Connery. I think he's just safe.
I think he might get it, unless he runs out right about now. Would be the time that would be inconvenient for him as he heads his way down into the bus stop. Just one more acceleration zone to go for Jason Dilworth, and he will actually take P4 when all is said and done. And what about Davy Vittelbots as well? He's heading his way on the same strategy as Jason Dilworth into the bus stop, and I think he'll get home as well.
I think he's out. I think he may just be out of fuel. He just about gets the power down and will get safe. But my word, was it a very, very tight squeeze. Rainier's closing like a freight train on Daleman, but I think he's too far away as well to make anything happen, barring a last gasp mistake. And for Bart Daleman, he's safe with position number 6. Bram Rainier's, you felt that he could do something in position number 4 at the start of this one. P7 only it is going to be. It's been a fantastic 2 hours here that we've seen at Spa-Francorchamps. If this is what battling is about in terms of the calculator, then it has been very interesting for those minds trying to work it out indeed.
And also another driver with a very good drive out there as well was actually gentleman John Roberts, actually gaining 12 positions on his qualifying position in 26 up into 14th, top 15 finish for John Roberts, and that is very, very good for the Arozzi team.
Yeah, fantastic result for that Arozzi team, with everyone then across the start-finish line. Classified results then from Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and the 2 hours under the floodlights show that Iru Nam will not be deterred and beaten, because he will get himself the victory from pole. 4.8 seconds though at the end of the day from Scott Brazier, who did challenge him along the way. Craig A. Williams had a big scare in the final few laps, finishing third. Jason Dilworth running out of fuel and on the Uber fuel save to get himself home in fourth. Davy Vittelbots, on his debut, gets himself up to position number 5, even with a spin. But Daleman, P6, also on the 2-stop. Bram Rainiers will be very happy with 7th, but it could have been a little bit more. Neil Bamber, another consistent top 10 for him. He finishes in 8th for that team that he works for of Bodine Solutions. Adam Shipstone will finish the last car on the leading lap in 9th, And then vehicles like Jason Withrow, what a top 10 it has been for him. Barry Baird all over the place today, you have to argue. Tony Baird as well, having big struggles. Gentleman John getting himself plus 12, doing a great job. As you look further down, drivers like Rolf Just getting himself over the line. Drivers struggling today, drivers like Daniel Bailey, Martin Gelenke, Simon Underhill, drivers like Taylor Lane, Ben Hackerson, and Ricky Green that failed to take a start. So for now, we're just going to step aside for one moment. The post-race show coming to you after this. Post-race show here after a thrilling finale to what was the first of 3 2-hour specials here in the Synology GT3 Championship, and 2 hours was very, very crucial for certain drivers here today. We're going to start off by talking to your race winner here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. His name is Iru Nom. Iru, you have to say it's been perfect for you today. A race win, no real worries here or there, and you just got yourself sorted.
Yeah, it was quite difficult race. I don't know what happened in the second stint, but I was 2 seconds off, but finally figured it out about 10 laps in.
So pray tell, what was the issue that you were struggling with?
I moved the brake bias towards the fronts, and that didn't help. Had to be in the rears.
Well, of course, that Ford GT certainly can be a difficult vehicle to get your head around. And, you know, where you look at it yourself in terms of where you're looking in the standings and the amount of wins that you've had from the starts that you've got. It's your 7th win of the season off of 13 starts. You're winning every other race that you're competing in. You've got a gap lead of over 100 points over Ben Hackerson, who failed to finish today. It might be quite naive of me to say this, but is the title yours?
No, I don't think so. It's still times to go, and everything can happen in this race. With the lap traffic like today, few close calls, but yeah. It's still open, I think.
It's still open, says Irunon, but of course a race victory for your brand new team of Thrustmaster, shall we remember. Shout out sponsors who gets it done.
Yeah, thanks for the new team, Thrustmaster, for taking me in, and yeah, for the league.
Yeah, no worries there at all. Irunom then a convincing race winner then in the early stages. We're going to talk to the driver who finished in 4th position overall in Jason Dilworth. Jason, it's been a little while since we've seen you up near towards the front, but a 2-stop strategy today. P4, you've got to be really happy with that from where you started on the grid.
Yeah, I guess I am. I guess I was really happy with my qualifying because I got 3rd. But I got to slow down. It felt like Scott was going too wide when maybe he couldn't have done that. But you know, it happened. I got to slow down, drop down to 10th, and then it was a battle from there on out. My plan was always to go 2-stop, and I was hoping for a podium, but you know, just missed out. I was so low on fuel in that last stint that I just had to coast around the last lap.
Well, it was a big coast, and you certainly gained a lot of fans for it. And, you know, the way that you've been driving that vehicle today, do you feel that when it comes to those 2-hour races that maybe you've set a precedent for maybe other people to jump on the same strategy as you for the next race?
I really hope not, because then I won't have such a benefit from it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way to go. I do a lot of the endurance races with the Bosra Racing team, so you kind of get to know what works in there, and I just tried to stay out of trouble. And maybe some more people will try that out. Maybe some more people will do a bit of maths about the stint lengths as well beforehand. But it wasn't the fastest strategy today, because the 3 guys in front of me were much quicker on pace and ended up in front even after an extra pit stop.
They certainly did, but of course you still managed to gain on the rivals who were in and around you, Dion Phillips and Tony Baird, running into issues on the last little splash and dashes between the pair of them. But of course we move to the 1 hour format once again when we head over next week to Road Atlanta, a very tight and narrow circuit with a lot of overtaking opportunity. Do you feel that maybe if you find yourself in the mid-pack or towards the front, that it's going to be a real scrap between many vehicles for the race victory?
Yeah, I think that track really lends itself to a lot of scrapping, which is interesting with a single screen. I'm still brand new to this Mercedes as well, so I've got a lot of learning to do, so I'll probably be doing a little bit more of just trying to stay out of the way. I'm not getting as much time to practice as I used to with a little baby in the household now, so I'll just do whatever I can and try and be entertaining for those who are watching.
Well, congratulations on the new child, but Jason Dilworth, let's get some words out. Jason Dilworth finishing home in position number 4 here today. We're going to very quickly talk to a couple of drivers who did struggle towards the rear of the field, drivers like Dave White, who I have here with me. Dave, it's a finish of P24. You got to be quite pleased with that. 4 laps down, though, off the pace, but, you still managed to get yourself a very hefty points haul, shall we say.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't qualify because I knew I was running at the back anyway, and I thought I'd just see how I go, take it steady and play the long game with just steady laps and try not to cause myself any accidents.
Being lap traffic and really struggling with the likes of vehicles that were coming along 6 and 7s, we saw quite a bit of aggression from the drivers further up through in the field. Do you feel that with those aggressions, with those drivers trying to make those pushes, do you feel that maybe you're in a good position to get out of the way?
Yeah, I keep quite a close eye on my relative box, and because the circuit's quite quick in places, it just allowed me to pull over, back off and let them pass with some clear instruction of which way for them to go.
Yeah, it certainly did for you. And finally, Road Atlanta, your thoughts on the circuit?
It'll be interesting. I've not racing GTs for a couple of weeks and having a break just to see how quick I'm on the pace with some of the slower lads as we are normally. Hopefully it'll get me back up, and this will give me a little bit of boost in the championship and going on forward to Atlanta.
Certainly will do then. Dave White finishing home today in the position known as number 24. And very quickly, we're going to get ourselves a talk with Mr. Paul Martin, if that is possible. Paul, for you today, just trying to find out where you've managed to get yourself to finish. It was P18 overall for you, 2 laps down off the pace. How was it out there? It was very cold conditions, of course, night time there. How were the tyres in the opening few laps?
Very difficult at the start. Got caught up in an incident between Ryan Atmore and Matty Van Delden. So I got front right hand side damage, the wheel and arch, so I had to pit early, but actually worked out quite well in the end because I managed to finish the race with just over half a lap's worth of fuel. So pleased with the recovery. At the start of the recovery it was a bit frustrating, but stuck at it and got rewarded towards the end.
Certainly did get that good reward towards the end, and some very crucial points in your battle in the mid pack towards the late pack as well. P18, you're satisfied with that, and you're hoping to maybe try and get some improvements on that on a very difficult Road Atlanta course next week?
Yes, definitely. Coming from the back of the grid, P18 is more than I could have hoped for. But more importantly, it's team points. For us who are racing in the amateur side of the teams, every point counts towards the teams.
It certainly does, and the amateur battle will be so important. Paul Martin finishing home very, very well there at the end of this one. We're going to talk with the driver very quickly who's got himself into position number 3, Craig A. Williams. Craig, personal best for you. It's a podium. It's a very good podium, but you had a bit of a scare in the final few laps with Jason Dilworth on the 2-stop.
Yeah, I mentioned in the team speak that I was slightly worried, and they were like, no, there's no need to be worried. There's no need to be worried. He needs to pit again. And I'm like, I'm not sure, because I did look at it and I'm going, I'm not sure. And then as I came out behind him, I knew he was saving a lot of fuel because the previous stop he was a good 5 or 6 seconds up the road, and then as I come out the pits and I noticed he was only 2 or 3 seconds, I eased it a little bit.
Yeah, you have to ease it a little bit, especially with that incident that happened at the top of Eau Rouge as well. You had the drivers there, likes of Barry Baird, trying to make his way back through the field, just driving for pride, shall we say. And when you have incidents and you have lap traffic, you know, causing incidents here and there, sometimes you feel it's maybe like a minefield sometimes when you're driving?
Yes, sometimes. I had an issue with somebody at the top of Lake Coombe, and it felt very Hamilton Vettel coming out of the end of Lake Coombe. The car just didn't accelerate, and I clouted into the rear. But as we were going up the top of Eau Rouge, and one car went left and one car went right, and the wall on the outside points towards the racetrack again. So I was a little bit nervous of the car bouncing off the wall, and then it could have ended up anywhere. So I covered my foot on the brakes, put the brakes on a little bit to slow it down, and closed my eyes.
Close your eyes and hope. And, well, the good news is it'll only be at worst a 10-second stop, going a little slap on the wrist. But heading over to Road Atlanta, a very, very difficult circuit. You got the corners, especially in the opening section, which really do test a vehicle and a driver. And turn number 6 in particular is going to be a turn that is going to catch out quite a few people there today, with such a small track and with a lot of Armco quite close to the areas that you'll be driving in. Do you feel that maybe there's a bit of a street circuit vibe with Road Atlanta that lends itself maybe to more incident?
Yeah, definitely. We raced a couple of seasons ago for the Petit Le Mans, and that didn't end well, shall we say. We'll go with didn't end well. With traffic, especially. Traffic wasn't smart, and we ended up in a few incidents and got damaged. So, hopefully, I like Road Atlanta. I'm not great at Road Atlanta, but it is a track I enjoy driving, so I definitely look forward to it.
You certainly do, and of course with a third place finish, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for Craig A. Williams?
Well, TBR, as always. 1, 2, 3 is always a stellar job. The wife for putting the kids to bed, that's always pretty handy, because she was making cakes, so that was always pretty handy. And yeah.
Except Irunom is now part of Team Thrustmaster, but you know, an eye for an eye, still part of the team setup straight afterwards. Craig A. Williams finishing home in position number 3 overall, but unfortunately that's all we're going to have time for here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. A huge thank you to all the drivers and the teams and to everyone who's been working at home. A big thank you to TMS Motorsport for helping getting the funding up together for this series, and a huge thank you has to go out to the likes of Istvan Balog's Track Camera Backs for Gourmets. A big thank you to Andwern Designs, the official graphics partner of Racebot TV, to ATVO and Appgeneer for the works of the graphics overlays here at Racebot TV, and to Brazilian Internet, because we know that it certainly does work from time to time. I've been #YouMind Jake Sperry, joined alongside by the man and Mr. Connery Maddock. Hugo Louise was behind the cameras for this one today. And well, Irunom, one hand on the trophy maybe. Road Atlanta will certainly be an even greater challenge for the drivers that have raced here today. Good night.